Sit back and get ready to have the most fun you ever had with an electronic device.
I think that Marie Kondo is in that box, and she gave you joy, so you kept her, but you just put her in a box.
You should have seen the place before she got here.
Does the case of Menin Speed Stick from 1998 give you joy?
It does, yeah. More joy for other people than me.
All right, everybody, welcome out to the Log Room. It is Tuesday, special Tuesday edition of the Log Room Sports Podcast. Tuesday, February 23rd, 2021. Jersey Johnny coming at you, and with me, as always, are none other than Mr. RadioPete and Mr. Harry Lug Nutz. Say hello, guys.
Howdy.
Hello, guys.
How the hell are you today?
It's like Monday Night Football on a Tuesday, Wednesday Night Baseball on a Tuesday.
On a Friday morning.
On a Friday morning.
There you go. Gotta love it. Yeah, we had to reorganize a couple things this week, but just for this week, we're doing the Tuesday gig.
We're just keeping your toes.
Keep it on your toes. That's all.
Making sure you're paying attention.
Exactly. That's the way we do it.
And every leap year we do it on Thursday. But.
Right. Once a leap year. So it won't be for another 3 years. But
right.
We had to make up for last year since we didn't start till afterwards. So we're doing it this year. Why the hell not? So anyway, how the hell are you today?
Fantastic. What you know? I mean, doesn't get better than this.
It really doesn't. It really
As George Carlin used to say, "Well, I'm not unwell."
Yeah, you know, every day above ground is a good day.
This is true. This is very true. And I see you're getting a little bit more organized there, Pete. I mean, in the intro there, Marie Kondo was mentioned.
Yeah, yeah. Well, actually, if you look over my left shoulder,
right,
you can see the box
that she was in.
She fell.
That is the box.
Yeah.
She is no longer in it.
She is no longer in it. Where is she?
She escaped.
Oh, there she is.
There she is. She is on to messier rooms than this.
In your house or just elsewhere?
I don't think she finished.
Well, she left a list and some tips. And She said, there are people, believe it or not, worse off than you.
Of course.
And so she had to move on. You know, she's like the
wind. I noticed the robe has moved.
Yeah.
And I've also now noticed there's a door back there.
Yes. That's,
well, the door was there last week. Right?
Was it?
Yeah.
Not the week before.
The good news is
he installed the door before last week.
The shelves are still here.
Now
without a doubt.
With their myriad of items.
Yeah.
So I think what did we decide we were going to do? You were going
to wear the robe. I was just going to name random objects and see if you actually
see if I had it. Yeah. Oh, and we do have to do a robe show.
Yes.
One of these days.
The 2112 kimono hour.
We can do that. We can just have. You
got to get
mustaches and kimonos.
We could just have something for nothing playing in the background.
You're gonna have to get like a Nippon Tigers hat.
I can work on that.
A nip-on. I don't know what that means, but sounds.
It's not that. I don't think it's a Nippon Tigers.
Nippon.
A Nippon. Okay.
Nippon Tigers.
Is it? I don't know.
Nippon.
I don't speak Japanese, so
I'm not sure.
I
really don't know.
Pronunciation
I
is.
don't know. Not sure.
It's not the Tigers though. What are the?
It's the. Is it the Tigers? No, it's
Dragons.
The Dragons. Nippon Dragons.
Dragons. Yeah. So get a Nippon Dragons hat and
jersey
and a Nippon robe.
Nippon
and we
Nippon robe.
That would be an awesome robe show.
Oh,
get your nips on. Yeah. Get your nips on.
We'll get Nipsey Russell on the show.
Is he still alive?
I don't know. Maybe.
Maybe we'll get Janet Jackson.
That's right. Just her nipple.
Just
we want to go. We want to go
nips.
time.
Just the nips.
I'm sure there's an isolated photo somewhere on the web of that.
I bet her other nip feels left out.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it could feel.
It was her left nip.
It was her right nip.
It was her right nip.
Okay. It was her right nip.
Good.
Unless the camera was backwards, it was her right nip.
Well, it was before FaceTime.
This is true. So it indeed was her right nip. So
it's always I would not have gotten that right on Jeopardy.
You would not.
Well, I think either one of them that was shown was the right one.
It was the correct nip.
Well,
it was also her right.
Sure, if you want to be semantical.
It was her right gland.
Anytime there's a nipple exposed,
Yeah.
Time of the Super Bowl. It's the right nipple.
But here's the problem, though. If we do a
Could have
robe
been
show,
Timberlake's nipple.
if we do a robe show and we have a nip slip on this show,
no nip slips on this show.
It's not going to be.
I will only partake if there's at least 2 undershirts on by every member underneath the kimono.
Yeah, I'm gonna duct tape things down. I think.
Yeah.
Just so that there's
pre-kimono, pre-kimono. Torso rack.
Just get completely dressed and then put the kimono on over whatever you're wearing. That's all it is.
We could do that.
Exactly. We can do that. So
yeah.
In any event,
it's going to be a spike. There's going to be a spike in extra large kimono sales on Amazon.
Sweat will be pouring down off our faces, but no nip slips. That's the important part.
Yes. God. Yeah.
Sorry, Meg.
Kind of worth it. Yeah.
You'll have to go to RadioPete's OnlyFans site for that.
RadioPete's OnlyFans site. Yeah. What's the other one? Patreon or something like that. Yeah. But in any event, he has both. Check him out. There you go.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm starting new categories every week.
That's right.
New genres are arising, so to speak.
Right.
What are you drinking there, John? A little cognac?
No. This is actually a little bit of a stout from Massachusetts. It's a maple coffee chocolate kind of breakfasty thing.
That sounds terrible.
From Worcester. Is it from Worcester?
It's from Worcester.
No, Brady drink that stuff.
Charlton, actually.
Charlton.
Charlton, Mass.
Kind of like
town,
Charlton, Mass. Yeah.
Good job.
It's by Sturbridge.
Good job, Sturbridge.
There you go.
And,
Not too far to Connecticut.
It's a good lot. It's a good stout.
It's a good stout. It's a good stout. So pretty tasty. Treehouse Brewing. It's really tasty.
Treehouse Brewing.
There we go.
Here's the can, as a matter of fact, if you're interested.
Very good.
Moment of Clarity is the name of the
I'm drinking a box of wine.
A box of wine.
Box of wine.
You know what goes really good with a box of wine?
Box of cheese.
A good can of cheese.
A can of cheese.
Good can of cheese, yeah.
And a tube of potato chips.
And a tube of potato chips.
They have a tube of potato chips there.
There you go. Yeah. Absolutely. So, but hey, you know what? There are some boxes of wine that are actually pretty damn good.
And wine is it can get a little pricey, and so $19.99 for a box of wine that's very drinkable is pretty good for me these days.
Here's the thing I would say about the box of wine.
It brings me joy.
Does the box of wine bring you joy?
It sparks joy.
It's as long as you get the first couple of glasses down, it gets better.
Yeah,
it does.
Plus, I really like
a certain point where
I like when you could just bring the bladder with you and
squeeze on it. Yeah,
squeeze it when you're on the bus.
But after a couple of big glasses,
take it out of the box and just carry it around.
$4 box of wine will taste just as good as a $25 box of wine.
There is a big difference for me in the drinkability of boxes of wine that cost the same, and some are good, some aren't. But
this is true. This is true. Beer Samurai from our beer podcast says hi, guys.
Hello.
How are you, Dave?
Samurai.
So maybe he'll wear his kimono next week.
We can have him come on with his kimono.
There you go.
And he's going to have his
his beer sword.
Yeah, his beer sword. Yeah. Beer sword. He'll do.
If we promote this on the right websites, our viewership will triple.
Our viewership will triple. Absolutely.
Yeah. Bearlovers.com. Well,
we could
classified section.
Gotta love it.
Well, plus we could probably quadruple our Japanese audience.
We could.
Especially top 10 Japanese baseball players of all time.
That's what we'll do. I mean, just because we're wearing the kimonos doesn't mean we have to go all the way
top
back.
10 Japanese rock bands of all time. That's a good one.
Right. We don't have to go full rush back to the 70s. We can actually play Tai Shan in the background.
No, we're not doing that.
No.
That's also Chinese and not Japanese.
Well, 601. It's still Oriental, if you will. So.
And all right. Well, that deals off.
All righty.
Marie Kondo told me that it may give me joy, so I was fine with that.
Maria Kondo would tell you that rugs are Oriental, people are not.
This is true.
Actually, I don't think people use that word anymore.
Eastern, no. It's
you don't know John's family. They do.
It's not acceptable. What's the new Oriental? Please school me. I'm curious.
For people that are Asian, I would think
Asian American.
So years ago, one of my
just them.
Right. All right.
One of my first gigs coming
Dave's
out
had too many jokes. He said. There you go.
Years ago, one of my first gigs coming out of the Connecticut School of Broadcasting was there was a company that would install these little like half-watt transmitters in shopping malls, and they had cassette tapes that ran in a loop in them, and it would broadcast throughout the mall. And you could go if you were driving, it was kind of like you turn your radio to 1500 or whatever to get the airport news. It was way up high on the frequency band, on the AM band. And so they would send me ad copy for the various stores in the mall, and I would read it. And one of the lines was, "Hey, do you like Oriental food?" So I was in my house reading this in my little home studio, and Donna looks over and goes, "Oriental food." Now this was 20, almost 25 years ago. We were just married a couple of years, and she goes, "Oriental food? There's no such thing."
It's definitely written by an older white man.
Yeah. Oh God.
Well, I didn't. I wasn't actually aware that was like a derogatory term. Obviously, there's a newer. You can.
It is
whatever the vernacular is. So I apologize to anybody that was offended by my comment.
I don't think you offended anybody.
No, nobody's listening. Don't worry about it.
No, I don't. I
mean, if you start hashtagging Marie Kondo, we might get. They'll immediately just be like, "What the hell?"
I know, that's just true. Well, I haven't hashtag.
Welcome to the Lager Room, your home organization podcast.
There you go.
Orientals welcome.
Right.
Why the hell not? Dave said, "Rugs can be accidental."
They certainly can. They certainly can.
So,
all right, hey, this might be a new record.
But some of them really tie the room together.
They do. They really do tie the room together.
All right, folks, that's it. We'll see you next week.
I was going to say this might be a record. We're 12 minutes in.
As we offend some
we're 12 minutes in.
Northern Europeans.
Sports yet?
So,
and we've offended some people.
I mean, come on. There's no sports going on.
This is true. It is almost the end of February, so there's really not a whole hell of a lot going on. But actually, there is when you think about it. So why don't we talk a little bit?
On that note, Johnny, why don't you strike up a topic?
Why don't we talk a little basketball? I mean,
basketball.
It is really little b-ball kind of thing. Julius Randle was named to NBA All-Star for the first time in his career.
Oh, God, right to the Knicks.
Right to the Knicks. I had to jump right to the Knicks. Well, you know why I started with the Knicks?
Because no one's talking about the Nets.
You know why I started with the Knicks, Pete?
Not on this podcast.
You know why I started with the Knicks, Pete?
Because that's more interesting.
Because I wrote them first on the list over here.
Oh, okay.
So that's
K does come before N. So
K comes before N.
Yeah, Julius Randle listened to powers that be, succumbed to the pressure of people yelling and screaming, and he's an all-star.
All right. Yeah, and he is.
Actually, I guess people just voted, right? Isn't that how they're chosen?
Well, no, I think it was
coaches and players.
The coaches,
right?
Coaches and players voted.
Which I think means more than, because it seems like the people that are voting are definitely, I don't know.
Well, yeah, if you think about
Major League Baseball
and the popularity contest and the guys that are in, you go, who? Why is he in?
NBA seems to typically be pretty good, though. The fans do a pretty good job of voting people in who are deserving. I don't. There's nobody that I don't think deserves on the team. It's always with the NBA. It's always a matter of there's 3 or 4, maybe 5 guys who probably deserve to be there, but just didn't get in this year.
Well, I think Julius Randle does deserve it. Yeah. He's playing phenomenally well.
I mean, he is the linchpin of that Knicks team. I mean, they have some other good role players, but he is the guy who I think they need to keep and potentially add and build around.
Yeah, I agree.
On that note.
Have you? I heard somebody say the other day something about a deal for Bradley Beal, and we touched on this last week, but I didn't hear. I only heard the tail end of it, and it didn't include any of the guys that you want to keep.
No,
it didn't include Julius Randle, and it didn't include Quickly, and I can't remember who it was that said it.
I was
wondering if you guys had heard anything about that.
I mean, look, the Knicks have been tied to Beal. There's rumors, the Oladipo thing, although it's quieted down quite a bit. And now the new rumor, which I don't think will ever come to fruition, is CJ McCollum. But
yeah, that's a big one now.
Brad, look, the Wizards are one of the hottest teams right now in basketball. They seem to be able to beat all the better teams in the league and not be able to beat anybody with a sub 500 record. Beal has said that he doesn't want to leave Washington. So, and then I don't know what he has left. I think he's got another full year on his contract. So you're absorbing his contract and then hoping that you can sign him to another one.
Right.
But look, if the Knicks can get a Bradley Beal and they don't have to give up Randall,
Quickly,
RJ Barrett, quickly, yeah, okay.
I want to hang on to Quickly.
Obi Toppin, or whoever else. I think everybody else is fair game. The problem is that the Knicks, what the Knicks do have is some draft picks that they can offer up. But I think a lot of this chatter was before Washington started winning some games and Beal and Westbrook started gelling a little bit more. Now you kind of look at it and go, why would you trade them for, unless you got something? I mean, who's better in the NBA to go to Washington right now? There's a handful of players, and none of them are going to be traded for Bradley Beal. You're not going to get Kawhi Leonard in a Bradley Beal deal. You're not going to get Damian Lillard. I mean, so why would you do it if you're Washington unless you're just trying to trade him to get something for him, build a younger team, and say we're done and we're going to go the route of the Knicks for the next 4 years, have a bunch of young draft picks, and hope we can get back to mediocrity.
Right. Well, that's it. And I mean, Zach LaVine keeps coming up in there too.
I'm not so hot on Zach LaVine. I mean, his numbers are good. I just don't see him fitting in on this team the way that an Oladipo or obviously a Beal would. Now, Beal would take some touches out of Randall's hands, and that's fine.
Oladipo talk seems to have calmed down a little bit too. It's not as
I don't think Oladipo's going anywhere.
Yeah.
Well, and if Washington trades Beal, what does that do to Russell Westbrook?
Right. I mean, it leaves Russell Westbrook high and dry.
He doesn't want to be in a young team that's rebuilding.
I think the fact that they got Russell Westbrook kind of negates any trade for Bradley Beal. I think it
would seem to we got these
unless they both get traded.
Yeah, well, unless they want to package them up, yeah.
Or not package them together, just two separate trades, and
that's true, yeah.
Then they're clearing room and they're saying it's the future.
So Westbrook would have like 12 years in Oklahoma.
But why would they want to do that?
A year in Houston, a year in Washington, and then on to somewhere else.
A year in Houston, a week in Washington.
3 weeks in 3 weeks in a Tuscaloosa hotel. I don't know. I think the Knicks are going. I don't see any big trades happening before the deadline for the Knicks. I just don't. I don't really see it happening in the NBA right now. Although I do think that the Lakers are going to make a move, and if they do, it's going to be a big one. I don't know who it's going to be, but they need some depth. They've lost a lot of depth getting Davis, and with Davis out, they're unable to beat any of the top teams in the league right now. Yeah. So I think you're going to see the Lakers. It might not be for a star player, but it's going to be for upgrades at 2 or 3 positions with guys who can play minutes. Because what we always thought about Anthony Davis is proving true again. He's not resilient enough to play a full season. He just isn't. He never will be.
I don't think he's ever going to be.
No.
I really don't.
But you're hoping that, okay, he's injured now, get him healthy for the playoffs, get a couple games underneath him before the playoffs start, and hope that he can contribute in the MVP manner that he's able to do. But
he's too fragile.
LeBron's averaging 43 minutes a game or something, or played 43 minutes the other night. It's going to wear and tear on him, even though he doesn't want to sit. He can't sit, or else they're not going to win.
No, they're not. Yeah, he's got to play. He's got to be the one that's holding, keeping the ship floating. So, but I think you're right. I think it's less and less likely that the Knicks are gonna pick up anybody at this point. There's the old talk is calm down. I just hope
there's no more aging fucking Derrick Rose type trades out there where they just.
If any,
we don't need any of that.
Honestly, if
just
anything,
ride this year.
CJ McCollum is going to be the one that that they do pull the trigger on.
CJ McCollum's not going anywhere.
I don't see any of these guys going anywhere.
No.
I don't see anything happening. I really don't. So.
It would have to be a trade, and I mean, if CJ McCollum gets healthy, Portland's arguably in the mix. Why would they have one of the best backcourts in the NBA? Why would you break that up?
This is true too. So, well, I mean, hey, we'll see what happens.
Again, what I'm hoping for is that maybe it's the off season, that somehow there's a trade that happens that gets a big name to New York and breaks this cycle of people saying, I'm not fucking playing for the Knicks.
This is true. Just want a quick aside. The Knicks are up by 2 to the Warriors, 38-36 right now. So there you go. Silence. Wow. You both shocked?
No. No. I mean, the Warriors are a good team. They're not a great team. The Knicks have beaten some good teams this year. They've lost to some shitty teams. I also think that there's a lot of teams that are finally getting their legs underneath them, like the Wizards. And I think there's a lot of teams that are finally getting their legs are getting tired underneath them, like the Lakers. And then there's teams that you just can't figure out, like the Celtics. And there's a lot of teams hovering around 500. There's a bunch of teams 3 or 4 games over 500. There's a bunch of teams right at 500, and there's a bunch of teams 3 or 4 games under 500.
There's a lot of mediocrity right now.
And none of them matter because there's 3 teams. Then that's who's going to dictate who wins the NBA.
Right now, Randall has 9 points, and Draymond Green has 7 at the moment.
Fantastic.
Those are your leaders for both teams.
Breaking news.
Well, I mean, it's the beginning of the second quarter, so
sure.
It's not like it's half.
I just wish I could have a time machine and allow Draymond Green to play against Charles Oakley. That's all I would really want. Is just Draymond Green going up against Oakley and Ewing and Anthony
Mason.
Yeah. Then we'll see how tough. Draymond Green is.
Yeah. Tough. Yeah. All right.
All right. Well, on that note, why don't we talk about your Nets there, Radio?
Well, how about we talk about the Nets who are doing something besides just kind of plodding along?
All right. Well, I got a question about the Nets for you. I got a question. Well, not about the Nets, but about KD. I got one question. Maybe you can answer it. Does KD? I don't want to say does he want to compete. Obviously, he wants to compete. He's obviously a competitor, but this is his second super team. And quite frankly, it's a better super team than his first super team that won championships.
That won the most games ever.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I mean, he's definitely an architect of these super teams.
I don't think this team has to prove itself to say that they're better than that.
No, well, of course.
I mean, LeBron did beat them single-handedly, but the year before or the year after, I can't remember now. The year before they did win a championship.
The year before he did. Yeah.
And I'm not sure yet we can say that this team is better than that Warriors team.
Well, on paper they're better. On the court,
are
maybe
they?
Not. Well, I mean, if you look at it,
they
should be. They should be. Right? I mean,
they remind me of like the 1973 San Antonio Spurs, or the George Gervin. I mean, it's like guys come down the court, all right, and they're already running the other way to make sure they're the first one to get the outlet pass. I'll tell you what, James Harden looks fantastic, and I've always been a Harden fan. He's such an enigma as a player to me. He's such a strange guy to watch, but he's fantastic. And Kyrie's been playing great. Now, then you arguably get the best player in basketball back healthy. Yeah, the Nets are the favorite in the East.
This is really the point that we have to look at, right? Because we talked about the Nets and we talked about how they don't play defense, right? And that's going to come back and hurt them, blah, blah, blah.
Maybe.
Well, but look at what they've done with their last half dozen games, right?
Mm-hmm.
They beat Indiana, okay. They walloped Golden State, okay. They beat the Kings handily, +4 over the Suns, and then they beat the Lakers by 11.
Without Anthony Davis.
And the Clippers by 4.
Mm-hmm.
With both of them.
No, they've beaten 3 out of the top 4 teams in the NBA.
Yeah, so it kind of raises the question that maybe they are offensively unstoppable. Now, you're right, the Lakers were without Anthony Davis, but still, they had LeBron, and they are a better team, even, the rest of their team is improved.
I will tell you.
LeBron and AD. So you kind of have to say, well, maybe they don't need to play that much defense.
I will tell you what's changed is that
Harden's the point guard now.
Both Harden and Irving are now twice as dangerous at the end of the game because they don't necessarily have to be the guy with the ball in their hand with the game on the line. And they've won a lot of close games. And when it's come down to it, both of them have played exceptionally well.
Which they should
during that time.
Now, superstars.
The unsung hero of the Nets is a guy who is a great shooter who's benefiting from the fact that he's always open, and that's Harris.
Yeah.
And if he continues to play the way he is with Durant there, he's going to take 10 3-pointers a game and make 6 or 7 of them. And you're going to see him become huge in the playoffs. Because who do you leave open? If I have to pick between Durant, Harden, Harris, or Irving to not double team or not fly out at on a 3-point attempt,
obviously
it's Irving. I mean, that's how good that they will be in this game, and they are built for today's NBA. They can play. They can play the majority of the. Now, Kyrie's reminds me a little bit of Allen Iverson. He's incredible at times under the basket for his size, but this is a team that is going to reside on the perimeter of the court, and if they can shoot the way they do, they're going to be unstoppable.
Kyrie loves the perimeter. He shot 9 for 11 from 3-point range the other night.
Right.
So
Kyrie's shooting has improved. Harden's overall plus minus and his turnovers have gone down. And Harris is the best 3-point shooter in the league, if I'm not mistaken. So
you're right, actually.
Yeah, because he's really getting just spot up looks.
He's JJ Redick on steroids.
Yeah, there's nobody next to him when he's getting the ball,
and he's tall, and nobody can get you can't get a hand in his face unless you decide to guard him. And if you guard him, Harden or Irving are going to take you to the basket. Yeah, they could. I think right now, if I had to pick a team that's favored to win the NBA championship, it's the Nets. I think they're better than the Lakers right now. I think they're better than the Lakers. And I think it has to come down to depth. I think that they can cause matchup problems with almost any team. Now, I do think a team like Utah, I do think a team like the Lakers with Anthony Davis there, I do think a team that has a big man presence like the Sixers with Embiid could pose a little bit of a problem. But there's nobody. Those teams don't have the balance of power that the Nets have to outduel.
None of them do. The only thing that's going to stop the Nets is their defensive woes. You know?
Well, and the other thing
that's the Achilles heel of the Nets right now. It's the only thing that's going to stop them.
And the other thing is, you have to stop them 4 out of 7 times,
right?
And even the mighty Lakers, I don't know.
I think the best team in the West right now is Utah.
Other than a toss-up.
Oh, Utah's running away with the West. I mean,
because they have Bogdanovich and Mitchell, and they're both excellent shooters and create. And Rudy Gobert, his game has excelled. He's become a lot better of a player, and he is disruptive on the defensive end, but he's a facilitator on the offensive end in that he sets they maybe have the best pick and roll combination since Stockton and Malone. With Gobert and Mitchell. And it's worked. I mean, I watched Utah against the Clippers the other night. The Clippers were up big, and Donovan Mitchell took it upon himself to make that a game. Now, granted, they lost. The Clippers held on. But this Utah team, Donovan Mitchell has to be in the MVP conversation right now. He is having one of those seasons that could potentially translate to a couple upset wins in the playoffs. But I think it's going to come down. I think it's going to be the Lakers and the Nets. And I think it'll be fun.
That would be interesting.
I hope so.
It would definitely be an interesting series. I wouldn't mind seeing it.
I would never go in doubting LeBron because he just, especially in playoff basketball, that guy is he's proven a few times now that he can carry a team on his shoulders without a doubt. Mm-hmm. But I just think this Nets team is just too much. If they can stay healthy, they have to be the favorites to win it right now.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't see why they wouldn't be, but
unless there's some sort of physical breakdown or Kyrie has a mental breakdown, right. This team there's
Kyrie
no way.
Right. Take another 3
but even
weeks
then,
off
they've
to
still
go,
got a great. They've still got a great chance.
Yeah.
Because before James Harden was the James Harden he is now on the Nets.
Right.
He can do other things too. So
Right. Exactly.
I mean, the ultimate kick in the balls to the Knicks would be Bradley Beal going to the Nets.
Yeah, why not?
They'll just have 3 point guards.
Yeah, exactly.
Three
5
guards.
point guards. You don't need a center.
Guards. Sorry.
Well, yeah.
Durant could
You
play.
don't need a forward. Just boom. Just just 5 point
just
guards.
7 guys on the bench.
Yeah.
That's it. Just 7 players.
Hey, imagine that starting 5 though.
Oh, you gotta love it. Oh, that's great. But all right, couple other basketball things. What you call it? Rockets released DeMarcus Cousins.
Yeah, I've always thought the Boogie Cousins fascination is just overrated. He's just broken down.
Yeah,
he's not the player. He had one or two good seasons.
2, yeah.
You know, he would be one of those guys if the NBA was still big man heavy and you needed a backup center to come in and, you know, log 12 minutes a game. He would be your guy for that. Yeah. But he's just not the player he used to be. And I don't think he fits. I don't think he's really a need for anybody right now.
Yeah, I don't think there's anybody can look at him.
The Nets could use him.
Why not?
Nets and the Kings 54-50 right now.
Yeah.
54-50.
So Sacramento's making a little bit of a comeback here.
That Vladdy started tonight. Chris Webber.
Knicks are holding 3 points ahead of the Warriors. Solid. Yeah. 51-48 right now.
The Knicks should beat the Warriors, and then they'll lose to the Bulls or somebody else that's under 500.
Your leaders right now switched, though. Derrick Rose is 10 points. And,
it's because he hasn't played in 3 days. He's rested. He's, it's like, that's fine. I like Derrick Rose. This isn't the future of the Knicks. He's like when Mark Jackson came back for the second time.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So, but and the other thing too, the Timberwolves, they got rid of Ryan Saunders and they're hiring Chris Finch.
Yeah, well, I think they kind of had to.
Well, the Timberwolves have a lot of talent on paper.
They do.
It just seems like they always have a lot of top draft picks. Like they always have top draft picks because they always suck.
Right.
It's just.
Is anybody going to miss Pau Gasol?
Oh, he's playing in Spain, right?
He's going back to Spain.
I have my league pass for the Spanish league, so I'm set.
Do you?
I didn't even know Pau Gasol was still playing. I know his brother looks like he's 106 this year. He's one of the reasons why I think the Lakers don't necessarily seem as in it. Everybody was hot on the Marc Gasol acquisition, and I'm just like, maybe Boogie Cousins isn't such a bad idea.
Well, listen, Marc Gasol is no Pau Gasol. I wonder what it's like, though. He goes back there. I mean, he's got, 2 rings, I think.
Yeah. I heard.
Does he go back and is he the respected guy who's won 2 rings in the NBA? Or
Tony Parker is going to play with him.
Yeah, or right. Or is he, I guess you can't hack it over there in the big leagues anymore. So you come back and.
I mean, how old is Pau? I mean, he's got to be, 37?
I would think 36 or 37. Yeah. 37.
And he was. You asked Kobe Bryant, whose number 2 guy was on that last championship team. It was Gasol, and so he's been around that long. I mean, he's.
Let's see. For his first year at Barcelona was 98-99.
All right, top 10 awkward white centers.
Top 10 Gasols.
There's a bunch though.
That's probably 6 or 7 others.
Yeah, let's draft that awkward Lithuanian.
Hey, listen, I think I won the News 12 Traffic and Weather Basketball Fantasy League twice with Arvydas Sabonis as my son.
Oh, Sabonis was a monster. And imagine if he was able to play in the NBA in his prime. He was like 58 when he came in the league.
Yeah.
Like, talk about a tank. His lateral.
I had him for his 2 best seasons.
He never moved laterally.
No, we didn't have to.
Yeah.
His kid's pretty good too.
Yeah. Oh, Sabonis was great. Those Trailblazers teams were tough. Yeah. God, I missed that era of the NBA.
That was fun.
Where you could just elbow somebody in the head and not worry about COVID.
I think not worry about COVID. Well, yeah, this is true. But you mentioned before all the today's NBA with the 3-pointers, and Mr. Barkley's not too happy with.
Barkley's great though. I mean,
sorry, go ahead.
Nobody is. I mean, if you're old enough.
If you're old enough to remember what the NBA used to be, you're not happy with it.
Then you're comparing it to that. You remember the Bird Magic. You remember Isaiah versus Jordan. You remember, Jordan against fill in the blank. You remember, I mean, there's just, and look, I think that there's a chance you might start to see a little bit of that. But it's become just a game of chuck 'em up. And some of these guys, I mean, Damian Lillard shoots a half court shot better than most people shoot a free throw. Yeah. So it just is what it is.
Yeah.
You're not allowed to really play defense anymore.
No.
You can't hand check. You can't box out. You can't really foul anybody anymore without being suspended for 6 games. So why play defense?
This is true.
Yeah.
This is true.
Listen,
why even bother? Just keep
win 125, 124. That's all you got to do.
Right. That's right.
How do we feel about fans back in the stands today? As a matter of fact, there's fans at the Garden and 10% or whatever it is. I guess
part of it's really great. The other part of it is that let's face it,
30%.
Sports crowds are going to become, or already are, vast contributors to the spread of this virus. But it is what it is. I mean, who cares? I mean, it's great. It's great to see people in the stands. I just hope, I guess we'll see what happens to it. But it's
right.
It's going to be weird actually seeing people in the stands.
Yeah.
Well,
I was going to say.
I heard somebody on the radio. They were going to a game. I don't know what game they were going to, but they said there was going to be 300 people there.
Sacramento Kings. That's a sellout.
Well, no, it was it was here in New York, so I don't think it was the Knicks game. I think they're letting more than that in, but might have been
I think they're 30%.
2,000 at the MS
Ranger game or something like that, maybe
2,000 at the Garden.
2,000 at the Garden. Yeah, I mean, that's about right.
Be 300 people in the. Strange.
It's going to be all of the Baldwins and Woody Allen.
All of the Baldwins and Woody Allen. There you go. New Jersey for high school sports, it can be everybody's parent as long as it's only two. 2 parents per player. That's it. That's okay.
Let's see. Okay, here we go.
How old-fashioned.
Brooklyn, 10%.
Hold on. Technically, can't you only have 2 parents?
Well, divorce, 4 parents.
But I'm saying, technically, biologically speaking,
you have.
Or is there some new thing now where if you're getting double teamed and you get pregnant, then there's 2 dads? I don't know.
We've taken a weird turn here.
Well,
Pete, you're an expert in this field. What do you think?
There were
snake milking, not
some interesting. Getting double teamed. That would be.
That's right. There's no double teaming in the NBA.
No, you can't double team anymore.
No,
not even single teaming.
It's illegal.
Anymore.
Yeah. So,
that would be some interesting.
All right.
Interesting.
Right. Wasn't that a movie with Danny DeVito and Arnold Schwarzenegger?
Double team.
It's called We're Both Your Daddy.
We're both your daddy.
At the same time.
Ask your mother.
Greg Evigan and Paul Reiser.
Oh God, you got to go. Well, Greg Evigan had BJ and the Bear, so I would definitely go with Greg Evigan because he had that cool truck. He never had a trailer hooked up to it, just the cab.
No, just the cab. Yeah.
And a chimpanzee. So I mean, if I was a girl, I would definitely jump in the cab with the truck driver with the chimpanzee.
Why not?
No trailer, caught in the back.
But then the chimpanzee's involved.
Yeah.
You never know at that point.
No, you never know who's your dad.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, listen, it was called BJ and the Bear. So
that's right.
And Stax.
I mean, I'm sure there were some lonely nights when
that's right.
Just the 2 of them alone in that truck. And
BJ and the Bear, I think that's the number one gentleman's facility in Reno.
Also the all-time number one.
Has no one named a bar BJ and the Bear? Come on.
That's a license to print.
That's a free one. That's a free one, my friends. That's a free one. Go for it. You have my
BJ
blessing.
And the Bear, exactly. There you
BJ and the Bear. There's never a ladies' night.
God.
Well,
anyway,
ladies' night is when they're closed.
Ladies' night on
Christmas Day. Christmas Day is ladies' night
when it drags.
Oh, what a turn! All right. Well, on that note,
it's a slow sports week. Come on,
it is. We got to figure it out.
Yeah, who else is talking about BJ and the Bear?
You kind of had to expect that something like this was going to happen.
That's right.
Well, where
top 10 BJ and the Bear episodes.
Top 10 BJ and the Bear episodes. There you go.
Do we want to talk about baseball?
No, we want to do a top 10 list.
Do the
first.
top 10 list? Oh,
Yeah,
right,
I think
because
we
it's
should do a top 10 list.
basketball
Because
related.
it's basketball related. There you go.
Yeah, I got to look at my notes here.
So why don't we get to today's top 10 list? Today's
Top
10
10.
list. Today's top 10 list is top 10 point guards in NBA history. There you go.
This was tough.
This was tough.
I mean,
tough.
the top 2 or 3, yeah, but I think my list was 15 long, and I could argue that all 15 of them deserved on that list. And I think there's going to be more.
You know what?
Some current players that are going to be on this
definitely
list.
current players that are going to sneak into the list too.
I think
if we do this again
position
in the
has
future, we'll have
changed.
to do a top 20. Really
Right.
have to.
The position has changed, but there's not so many great. We have one center, maybe two that might make it into the center list, but point guards, especially with there not being a point guard anymore, is going to be interesting.
Exactly. So
yeah.
All right. Well, Radio Pete, why don't you kick us off with number 10?
Let's get started with number 10. It's a favorite of mine, of course.
Of course.
Captain Kidd. One and the only Jason Kidd.
Right there. There he is.
Yeah. And listen, maybe a little underrated, but one of the all-around kind of players in the point guard game. 1,391 games played, almost 1,400 games. 12.6 points per game, 40% from the field, and about 35 from three-point range, 34.9 in fact. 6 rebounds a game, 8.7 assists per game, which I think puts him 8th on the all-time list. And 1.9 steals per game. 10-time All-Star, 6-time All-NBA, and 1 championship. He did go to a couple others with those New Jersey Nets, but they ran into some guys from the West Coast.
Reality.
So
Well, listen, it was fun, and those were very exciting teams.
They were,
but they ran into one of the great tandems and of all time in Shaq and Kobe. Who won a few championships on their own. Although Kidd did get the championship. I think it was his last year playing.
He kind of coattailed it in there a little bit, but yeah. He could thank Dirk Nowitzki the rest of his life.
A little bit.
Yeah. So,
everybody on that team.
Listen, he was great. Much better player than he was a coach, but he's going to get another chance, I think.
I think time will tell on his coaching.
Yeah, I mean, he's an assistant with somebody now. I don't know who, I forget. But yeah, just an all-around player, and hit some big shots. Never afraid to take the game winner, and made a lot of them too in his career.
He did.
So one of the all-time great New Jersey Nets.
Maybe the best net ever, right? Other than maybe Dr. J.
Other than Dr. J.
I think Dr. J goes down as a Sixer in the NBA world, but yeah.
Well, he was still on the Nets, so I mean, at that point, was he? Well, yeah, I guess there's an argument there, yeah. So
yeah, he was. Well, he probably gained more fame as a Sixer, but
I think Jason.
He's still the greatest.
I think Jason Kidd's the best net of all time.
All right. There you go. Number 10, Jason Kidd. Radio P, why don't you also do number 9?
Double up and do number 9.
Double it up.
2 for Tuesday with Radio P.
It's 2 for Tuesday.
Steve Nash. Also kind of underrated.
Speaking of the Nets.
Yeah, speaking of the Nets. It's an all-net show here.
It's an all-net show.
Steve Nash, who never won a championship, despite leading some very exciting and very talented Phoenix Suns teams. But 1,217 games, 14.3 points per game, 49 from the field, and 42.8. So 43% from three-point range. That's pretty darn good. 3 rebounds a game, just behind Jason Kidd at 8.5 assists per game, and 0.7 steals. 2-time MVP for Steve Nash, 8 times an All-Star, and 7 times an All-NBA. He was great. What can you say? And he had the hair. Look, 50, 40, 90 guy. A lot of times. Again, 50 from the field, 40 from 3, 90 from the stripe. Good quality.
He was rock and roll John Stockton.
Yeah.
Canadian rock and roll John Stockton.
Wasn't that a song?
Right.
Wasn't that a song by the
by Wesley Willis, rock and roll John Stockton?
There you go.
Yeah. And I mean,
I thought it was the Romantics.
That's right.
Yeah, those Suns teams were explosive and fun to watch, and I don't know. It's if you didn't really have a dog in the fight, if your team wasn't in it, how could you not root for the Suns? And unfortunately, Steve Nash never got a ring, but
I think he missed out. Like if it was either him or Kidd. Like they got rid of Nash and Kidd came in on that Dallas team, but Nash was I think 1 year away from still being on the team, or wasn't he almost on the Dallas team?
Year or two. It was a year.
Yeah, it was a year.
It wasn't more than two.
I think Nash retired and Kidd came in.
Man,
right?
and yeah, exactly. So
and then they won. I'm sure that was bittersweet.
Yeah,
a little bit.
Dirk's date.
I don't think it would have mattered either way.
No, they're very similar players in a lot of ways.
Yeah,
pretty much. There you go.
Nash was a little bit more dynamic, but and 2-time MVP, which was not an easy thing for There's very few people like at this position who could say they've won that many MVPs.
This is true.
Yep.
This is true. All right. Number 9, Mr. Steve Nash. I will take number 8. Number 8 is going to be rock and roll John Stockton.
Yes, there he is. Crazy bastard.
There he is. He brought Ramen along with him.
He's doing blow off a hooker's ass right now.
There he is. John Houston Stockton.
I mean, if there was ever anybody perfect for Utah, it was John Stockton.
It's John Stockton.
And if there was anybody the opposite of Utah, it was Karl Malone.
Karl Malone, right.
Although he did learn how to ride a tractor.
He did. John Stockton taught him.
That's right.
Right, exactly. He was drafted in round 1, 16th pick overall in 1984 by the Utah Jazz. He was 10-time NBA All-Star, 89 through 97, and again in 2000. NBA All-Star MVP in the game in 93. 2-time All-First Team, 94 95. 6-time All-NBA Second Team. 3-time All-NBA Third Team. 5-time NBA All-Defensive Second Team. And the list goes on and on and on. He's number 12.
17-time most translucent player on the court.
17-time. You could see, right? Look, you can see through him in the picture. You can see the guy sitting behind him. He was just amazing. His number 12 is retired by the Utah Jazz and by Gonzaga, too. They retired his number 12.
Yeah, he was the OG Gonzaga
He was
guy.
the OG Gonzaga guy right there. That's
OGG.
OGG. There you go. OGG Bulldog.
OGGO.
There you go. 19,711 points, average of 13.1 points per game. 15,806 assists, average of 10.5 assists per game. Steals 3,265. So he, still great numbers there, just crazy. And he, he's the only player with more assists and steals than Kidd. And Kidd isn't even close.
Yeah.
That
may be the best point guard power forward duo. I mean, you could argue maybe Tony Parker and Tim Duncan, but I mean, these guys were just incredible.
It was great watching them play.
They invented an entire, they invented the current brand of the pick and roll, although, it's been sort of changed a little bit.
It's morphed a lot, but
you knew what they were going to do every time down the court. You knew exactly what they were going to do.
Yeah, here it goes. And they're scoring again. They're scoring again. They're scoring again. That was it. But, yep, there you go. Number 8, rock and roll John Stockton. Harry Lug Nutz, why don't you tell us who number 7 is?
Number 7 is the greatest New York Knickerbocker of all time, none other than Mr. Walter Clyde Frazier. And look, I think that Walt Frazier gets the short shrift when it just comes to the best basketball players of all time, let alone the best point guard. And some would argue, and you have to be of a certain age. This was before our time, but if I could go back and watch one sporting event, it would be the Game 7 of the NBA of the 1970-71 season, when the Knicks beat the Lakers. Now, everybody kind of, especially if you're a Knicks fan, the lore of all of this. The Knicks won game 5 when Willis Reed went down. They went back to LA, got blown out in game 6, and they came back in game 7. Willis Reed came out, took 2 shots, made both of them, sat down, and Walt Frazier went on to have one of the best game 7 performance of all time. And 36 points, 7 rebounds, 19 assists, and 6 steals. And oh, by the way, he was going up against Jerry West and Wilt Chamberlain. It wasn't like he was playing against, Bill Cartwright. This was a performance for the ages, and he was the floor leader for arguably maybe the best team in the true sense of the word that ever played the game. This was a team that was composed of a bunch of really good players who were unselfish, and he was the field general for that. So, had he played on another team and maybe in another era, I think his numbers would have even been higher. But he still averaged 19 points a game, 6 assists a game, and just under 6 rebounds, and was a 2-time world champion. Went to the NBA Finals 3 times, was a 7-time All-Star, and a 4-time first-team All-NBA. His career was cut a little bit short. And I would argue that maybe this is the curse of the Knicks, is when they traded Walt Frazier. I think back in the day, the equivalent of trading Walt Frazier would have been the equivalent of trading Derek Jeter on the Yankees.
Yeah, I would say so.
And they played against some good teams. And granted, the Knicks had a lot of talent, but they were a team's team. When you talk about Bradley and DeBusschere, obviously Willis Reed. Willis Reed was put in a heroic performance that year and was definitely the captain of the team. But Willis Reed is on record as saying it was Clyde's ball, and he just decided who he would give it to.
Yeah,
he was the leader of that team, and if you ask anybody, he was the best player on the court. And I think his career was a little short. His time in Cleveland was injury plagued and probably anticlimactic. But 2-time NBA champion, and he goes down in folklore because of that performance in Game 7, bringing the Knicks their first NBA championship, and then their second and last. And he's obviously, a lot of younger people and even older people know him more as the voice of the Knicks. He's one of the best, I think, announcers in the game. Oh, yeah. And at the time, when you think of New York sports, you thought of Mickey Mantle, Joe DiMaggio, maybe Joe Namath, and Clyde Frazier. And in the 70s, Joe Namath and Clyde Frazier ruled New York.
Oh yeah, you couldn't get any bigger than
Frazier. They said he was Walt on the court and Clyde off the court.
Right.
And I think that's really true. And he's one of those guys who I just think is not mentioned enough. And I'm happy to announce him on our list.
Absolutely. I agree. And don't forget, he's definitely like the fashion forerunner to Westbrook.
Well, yeah, all these guys. I mean, he started it all, I mean, that's how he got his nickname. He was wearing a wide brim hat. Somebody, the Knicks trainer, said that he looked like Clyde from Bonnie and Clyde. That's how he got his nickname. It's through his fashion.
He's dressing and impressing.
Swishing and dishing.
Slipping and dipping. And
slipping and dipping.
The Knicks were trading and fading.
That's right. He's rolling and patrolling.
Patrolling.
I mean, I got to meet him once here at a Nuggets game. I walked down and said hello to him before the game started. He was, announcing. And he's just a class act. I think he's a class act. And when I think of New York City icons, I think of, obviously you think of Namath. You think of the guys who preceded him with all the Yankee wins. But in current times, from the 70s on, I think it's really Namath, Willis Reed, and Walt Frazier, Reggie Jackson, maybe of the Yankees. You think about, some of the Mets players of the teams in '86. But really, there hasn't been that sort of guy who could take over as a celebrity and back it up with his performance on the court, on the field. And he's one of those guys. He did it in a way too it didn't come across as cocky or arrogant or annoying. He just did what he did. He was one of a kind. And I know there's a lot of Patrick Ewing fans out there that disagree with me. But he was without a doubt the best Knick of all time, and it'll take a lot for somebody to top that.
I agree with you. I mean, I'll put Ewing behind him, right behind him.
Absolutely. And Willis isn't that far behind them.
No, Willis would be 3 in my top 3. But yeah.
And then Ernie Grunfeld.
Sure, absolutely. Well, there you go. Number 7, Walt Clyde Frazier. Harry, why don't you also tell us who number 6 is?
Number 6 is none other than Mr. Isaiah Thomas. It's interesting when we were going through this list. Obviously, Isaiah is one of those guys who comes across as a quintessential kind of point guard. And my whole thing was, where does Isaiah really stand? And I went back and I watched some clips of him, and I think I forgot just how good he was. And I think there was a similarity between Isaiah and Jordan in that individually, they put on some performances prior to their championship years that were individually just staggering. But when they learned how to do it within the context of the team, that's when they became champions. And you could argue Isaiah ruined the Knicks as a coach. But
there's a lot of things that ruin the Knicks.
Yeah,
just Isaiah.
But look, he's a 2-time NBA champion. He's a Finals MVP, 12-time All-Star, 2-time All-Star Game MVP, 3-time All-NBA first team, 2-time second team, Rookie of the Year. He was an NCAA champion. He was the NCAA Final Four most outstanding player. He was fantastic. And I one of the things I respect about Isaiah is that he never denied who he was. He was always the guy who was unapologetically ready to sort of stand on his own and take on and maybe lose some points in the popularity contest and never sit at the cool kids table. He was, it doesn't go unnoticed that he wasn't very liked by the Jordans and the Barkleys of the world. But
are you trying to say Isaiah Thomas and Michael Jordan didn't get along?
Yeah, but I'll tell you what. That team, it was Isaiah's team.
Yeah.
And he took a bunch of guys who maybe in today's NBA wouldn't even be in the NBA and won 2 championships. Mm-hmm. And he had a great coach. They were a tough team. He was a talented player. It was a different time. I get all of that. But Isaiah was, amazing. And look, averaged almost 20 points a game, not over 9,000 assists, 9.3 assists per game. And almost two steals a game. He was a really good defensive player. I mean, Clyde Frazier was a great defensive player. And you could talk about people like Gary Payton as point guards, but Isaiah was a really good defensive player. And those teams won their championships based on defense.
Absolutely.
And
talk about guys at that position and toughness.
Yeah, undersized. There's a lot of guys on this list. Isaiah, Allen Iverson, even Stockton and Nash, but they weren't as physical as Isaiah. They weren't as willing to sacrifice their body as Iverson and Thomas were.
Yeah, Isaiah was on the right team.
Right.
Because
he was
could be a bruiser, right? And he could be tough. He was just a smaller version.
He was the Dachshund that would start a fight at the park, and then all of a sudden his 2 Great Dane brothers would come over and back him up.
Stockton could be tough because he had Malone standing behind him.
Well, he had a better offensive.
He didn't have to turn around. Malone was just behind him.
He had a better offensive line than the Knicks and Jets have right now. It's just. They were bruisers. But he also had, some guys who I think Isaiah made them better. And the guy who's always going to be his counterpoint is going to be, Magic. And that's going to be who he's compared to. Sure. But Isaiah sort of bridged that gap. He was, he played against Bird. He played against, those Knicks teams with Bernard King who were really good. He played against Jordan. He played, he wound up playing in a time when there was a lot of really good players and some parity in the NBA. And the Bulls had to go through the Pistons, to really prove themselves. And Isaiah got the best of Jordan early on. I mean, those teams did. And then after that, it was the passing of the guard. But it was the same thing with Bird getting the best of the Pistons. And the East was really interesting back when Isaiah came into the league. There were some really great series. The Knicks and Detroit, Boston. You had teams. Indiana was starting to come up. It was rough and tumble, and Isaiah was never afraid to get right in the mix of it.
Yeah, but I think a lot of those Pistons teams or those players just wouldn't have been seen as good as they were seen because Isaiah was like, in other words, the Lakers, not to take anything away from Magic, but the Lakers just had great players.
No comparison. No comparison. I mean,
the Pistons didn't have that.
Vinnie Johnson was the only other really skilled player that he had a bunch of guys who were good role players, but Isaiah was the finesse and the talent of that team, and he carried a lot of those teams single-handedly a lot of times. I think what's lost on people is just how explosive of a scorer Isaiah could be, while still averaging almost 10 assists a game. He was obviously a great distributor, but he was sort of the precursor to what we're seeing today in the NBA a little bit more, while at the same time playing both ends of the court, which a lot of these guys don't.
No, who does?
Yeah. I think Iverson was the last one. I mean, I think he was the precursor to Allen Iverson, and now you see a lot of players sort of like that in some ways.
Right. So there you go. Number 6, Mr. Isaiah Thomas. I will take number 5, and number 5 is none other than Mr. Steph Curry, the only, if I'm not mistaken, the only current player on our list. Nobody else is, right? Steve Nash isn't playing right now, is he?
No, Steve Nash has not played for a while.
Steven,
although you never know.
This is true. Well, he might be.
He could suit up, player coach.
He could suit. Why not? What the hell?
It's for one game.
I don't think the Nets need any more guards.
Why the hell not? Steph Curry, Wardell Steph Curry the second. Is there such a thing as a second?
I don't know.
Wouldn't that be
the worst goatee in the history of the NBA?
Would that be a junior? Oh yeah, is that? I don't know what that is.
Yeah.
There you go. Anyway, 7th overall pick in the first round in 2009 by the Warriors. Obviously, 3-time NBA champion 2015, 17, and 18. 2-time NBA most valuable player in 15 and 16. 7-time NBA All-Star. 3-time and All-NBA first team. 2-time All-NBA second team. All-NBA third team once. Scoring champion in 2016. Steals leader in 2016. That was a good year for him. 2016.
That team was pretty good.
Yeah, a little bit. 50-40-90 club in 2016. NBA three-point contest champion in 2015. It just the list goes on and on.
He's reinvented what shooting in the NBA means. Yeah. It's just unbelievable.
It's just crazy. He averages 23.5 points a game, 6.5 assists a game, 5.5 rebounds a game, 3.5 threes a game, a little more than 1.5 steals a game. Per 75 possessions, he's got 25.1 points, and his relative true shooting percentage is +8. He's already there's already an argument that he could by the end of his career he could wind up being the best point guard in NBA history.
Sure, and I think a lot of people a lot of younger people who sort of put value on what the game has become. I mean, there's no argument there. I mean, today in the modern game, there's nobody better.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's some people that are chasing him, I think, right now.
Oh, yeah. No, there's a couple people riding his tails. I mean, we talked about it. We said it before we started the list. I mean, if we do this again next year, there's going to be other people on it. We'll have to do a top 20. Or the list is going to be dramatically different. But a couple of years ago in a blind poll that pitted Curry's career numbers at that point against Magic Johnson's numbers, Curry won in a landslide with at that point in their careers. It's so. I mean, he's headed in the right direction.
You can't really compare because it's just a different
world. It's a completely different world. It's it's apples and oranges.
Not to dismiss Curry because I do think he is a transformational player. But Reggie Miller did everything Steph Curry did with people hitting him in the face the whole game.
This is very true.
So
anybody listening to this podcast, go watch some film. It's absolutely true.
If you stick Steph Curry in the 90s, he's still going to be a great player. But I'm not quite sure, he has the physical makeup to play in that era. Right. LeBron certainly would. I think even somebody like Damian Lillard would because they're a little bit more physical. But Steph Curry has just taken shooting to another level. He is, without a doubt, the best shooter in the history of the game. And he's a point guard.
Well, let me just throw a couple quick numbers at you here because obviously Steph Curry comes from, talk about NBA kind of royalty families, right? Adele, his dad, and Seth, his brother. Well, Seth hasn't been around quite as much, but
Seth's having a good year.
career field goal percentage for Seth Curry is .002 behind his brother Steph.
Yeah.
And his 3-point percentage is 444 to
He's
Seth.
he's just 3 rings and 2 MVPs behind him.
Seth is 444 and Steph is 434.
Yeah.
So he's actually outpacing his brother.
I think Del Curry is the best NBA dad of all time. Yes, I will say that.
You could go there. You could go there.
Yeah. So quite a family.
Quite the family.
Who Del Curry play for? The Pacers? Wasn't he on Charlotte at some point? I don't know. Doesn't matter. Yeah.
Yeah, I have no idea.
Steph's the only current player on our list, right?
He played for the Jazz, the Cavs, the Hornets, the Bucks,
the Hornets.
and the Raptors.
I knew he was on the Hornets.
Hornets the most. Hornets he played 11. 10,
he was an all-star a few times there. Didn't he play with Grandmama?
He did. He played with Grandmama. Yeah.
Yeah.
Before Grandmama became a Nick.
If you look at point guards and what they've become, I think you look at as far as current players go. Mm-hmm. Where's John Wall? Where's Damian Lillard? Damian Lillard's numbers are fantastic. Where's Westbrook? I mean, I'm surprised Westbrook didn't make it onto this list.
Yeah. Here's one other thing about Seth. Shooting, right now he is and again, the season's not over, obviously, but he is the only member and would be the sole member if he continues to the end of the season to be in the 50-50-100 club.
50-50-100.
So he's 50 from the field. 50.
How many free throws has he taken?
70. I don't know.
70.
I don't know. A lot. Yeah. Probably not. Well, not enough, obviously. But that would be something no one's ever done. So he's pretty good too. But you're right. He's got a ways to go to catch up to his brother.
A little bit. And will he be able to at that point? So.
Right. So, well, yeah. I mean, is he ever going to be on a super team? The way Steph was. Yeah,
exactly.
If you look at that first championship team for Golden State, they weren't really a super team. They were a super team. But this is before Durant obviously got there.
Yeah, right.
They built that team through the draft, really. And yes, Iguodala played a big role, and they were a team, though. And as much as I couldn't stand them because of the style of basketball they played, you have to admire what they've been able to do. I mean, they have really put their stamp on this is the way the game is played nowadays. And I think what Steph Curry to me represents is the fact that this is no longer. This was the final nail in the coffin of a big man being able to be dominant in this game. It was that Golden State team was all about we're gonna play a modicum of defense and we're just gonna come down and chuck up 3-pointers. And guess what? We're going to make a really high percentage of them.
Yeah.
And we're going to blow you off the court.
Well, and I mean, there are people that, still insist, and I think you can make the argument, there's a reasonable argument to make, that Klay Thompson is even a better pure shooter than Steph Curry.
Absolutely. And that's why Steph Curry is sort of this, he's taken that point guard who can score to the next level. And he is the floor general of that team. But he also just when Klay Thompson's out for 2 years, or he looks to his left and sees Draymond Green standing at the 3-point line, he can just sort of say, you know what? I'm just going to take this game into my own hands. And if I drop 60, oh, well, it's just another night. He's that good. He's that good. There's no argument, I don't think, that can be made by anybody. Has never been a better shooter. When you talk about somebody who's in a catch and shoot or create his own shot type of scenario, his release, his range, and his ability to score is unmatched. And I really think that if he wanted to, he could average 35 a season if he really just wanted to. But he's not. He's kind of a team player. And the point guard has changed. When you think about Isaiah to Steph Curry, it's a different type of basketball, but he's in today's game. There's no doubt he's the best. I would put Westbrook close because I think Westbrook is a little bit more like some of the old school point guards, just with incredible numbers. But Steph Curry has reinvented the wheel.
Yeah, I agree. All righty. Number 5, Steph Curry. Radio Pete, why don't you tell us who number 4 is?
Number 4, Bobby Cousy. Definitely not still an active player.
No, he hasn't played.
He's an active adult.
He's an active adult.
Yeah, and I certainly I would say
he liked to play close to the floor.
Look at that.
Look at
amongst this generation,
Mr. T would be proud.
Amongst this generation, the current generation, not as well known, but
the last guy with Chuck Taylor's on to really light it up.
This is true.
One of the most fantabulous players, Bob Cousy. 924 games, 18.4 points, 37.5 from the field, 5.2 rebounds, and 7.5 assists. Career averages, one-time MVP, and that was, I believe, the 1956-57 season. He averaged 20.6 points, 4.8 rebounds, and a league-leading 7.5 assists. By the way, he led the league in assists 8 years during his career, and that was 8 years in a row.
Yeah, but you're leaving out the number that he leads everyone on this list in.
Well, he was a 13-time All-Star and 12 times an All-NBA player, and he's got 6 championships.
There you go.
Yeah. And he was a big part of all of those championships, even
Absolutely.
with all those great players. I mean, 56, 57, I think you had Tommy Heinsohn and Bill Russell joining the team.
Yep.
And Cousy was still the man that season. You can't say unsung, but underappreciated.
Now I think he's starting to, people are starting to forget about him. But yeah, he was unbelievable.
Yeah,
absolutely. I have to concur. There you go. Number 4, Bob Cousy. There you go. Harry, why don't you tell us who number 3 is?
Number 3 is another person who I think is maybe more known nowadays as the guy who got Kawhi Leonard to the Clippers, and none other than Jerry West, whose silhouette is what the NBA logo is based on.
That's his picture right there.
Jerry West was a guy who, when you look at his numbers, they're absolutely staggering. And he played on some of the best Lakers teams ever. Let's see, what did he average? Over 27 points a game, 6.7 assists, almost 6 rebounds. And he won 1 championship. He was a guy who, much like the guy who he won a championship with, and Wilt Chamberlain, was just this was back when the Lakers just could not get past the Celtics. And the Knicks sort of became a little bit of a rivalry as well. But he was just one of those guys that he was the original player who could just light it up. I mean, from the guard position, just light it up. And he was the leader of that team. And much like what Cousy was to the Celtics in the earlier years, Jerry West was for the Lakers. And it's just, he won a championship in 72. I believe the Lakers beat the Knicks that year. He was an NBA Finals MVP in 69. I think they lost that year, if I'm not mistaken. 14-time NBA All-Star, 10-time NBA All-First Team. The list goes on and on. He's. I think when you talk about the top 10 to 20 players of all time, Jerry West's name should immediately be mentioned. Yeah. And he also, I don't know how old Jerry West is now, but he still also looks like if you met him in a dark alley, he'd bite your ear off and then, fucking bury you. And he just seemed like an intense guy.
He was a tough guy. He was a little pale in that picture I put up, though.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. He's very white.
Basketball too.
But Jerry West, one of I think along with somebody else who's going to, I think, be on this list, is a guy who just was his numbers are staggering when you really look at him. And at a time when the NBA wasn't scoring necessarily 150 points a game.
No.
So
scores were a lot lower.
Right. And, people argue, well, it was different then. There wasn't as much talent in the league. Well, I would argue the talent was concentrated in less teams. And so this is why it was harder to get past the Celtics team. This is why they had such a hard time beating the Knicks. I think he's one of those. He's one of those guys his career is really, really interesting. And I think the more you look back on it, I think the fact that him and Wilt finally won a championship together was sort of telling.
Yeah. Well, the talent was definitely more concentrated on the teams, but the teams played both sides of the ball back then.
And that makes it harder. You know, it's like
you can't score 150 points if the other team's playing good defense.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, we talk about Kyrie, Durant, and James Harden. Well, okay. Elvin Hayes, Jerry West, and Wilt Chamberlain. There you go. Just your call.
Think about the numbers that these guys put up with the other teams playing defense. You know, that's what you got to think about.
Right.
You know, you look at this. Some people look at these numbers. Some younger people look at these numbers, and they'll say, well, you know, Curry can do that. Leonard can do that.
They played both sides.
They played both sides of the ball. They played physically themselves. Played both sides of the ball, and when they were scoring, they had people D'ing them up. So, you know, it's. It's
I mean, you know, he had to get through Kareem and Oscar. Then he had to go play DeBusschere and Willis Reed and Bill Bradley and Walt Frazier and Earl Monroe the next year. And yes, you know, it wasn't as if there was no competition. I think that's why it was a big thing when the Lakers finally won a championship. It was a big thing.
Yeah, it was huge.
This was a team, you know, out west. Nobody really. The sports were dominated by the Northeast, and he was Mr. LA, and still is in a lot of ways.
Yeah, he is. Well, there you go. Number 3, Mr. Jerry West, the logo himself. There you go. I will take number 2. Number 2 is the Big O, Oscar Robertson. There he is, right there. Oscar Robertson. Oscar Palmer Robertson, to be exact. Big O. He was, he was a territorial pick back in 1960 by the Cincinnati Royals. He played on the Cincinnati Royals for 10 seasons. Cincinnati Royals, if anybody doesn't know, became the Sacramento Kings. If you were curious. What?
The Royale with cheese?
The Royale with cheese. The Royales, Burger King became a Royale with cheese. See how that worked? That's pretty good. There you go. But anyway, and then he went to the Bucks for a few seasons after that. He was an NBA champion with the Bucks in '71, NBA MVP in '64 with the Kings or the Royals. 12-time NBA All-Star, 12 consecutive years, 61 through 72, 3-time NBA All-Star Game MVP, 3-time MVP of the All-Star Game, 9-time All-NBA first team, 2-time All-NBA second team, NBA Rookie of the Year in '61, 6-time NBA assists leader. His number 14 was retired by the Kings, and his number 1 was retired by the Bucks. Member of the NBA 35th anniversary team and the 50th anniversary team. Tons of college accolades. 26,710 points in his career. That's 25.7 points per game. He had 7,804 rebounds. That's 7.5 rebounds per game, and 9,887 assists. That's 9.5 assists per game.
He's pretty good.
Yeah, a little bit. He was the standard.
He was the OG triple.
He was the OG
triple double
for that position 20 years before Magic came along.
Yeah.
But he, crazy. Cream. Whatchamacallit? It was quoted as saying, "LeBron is awesome." It was Kareem was singing his praises. Said LeBron is awesome. Michael Jordan was awesome, but Oscar Robertson would have kicked them both in the behind.
Yeah,
absolutely. He says Oscar was awesome. He had brains and he had all the skills.
Yeah,
and that's coming from Kareem.
Something about him. Just something about great players in Milwaukee.
Right. So, there you go. Number 2, the Big O, Oscar Robertson. Radio Pete, why don't you tell us who number 1 is? This fact that nobody can figure out at this point who it is.
Is it Seth Curry?
No,
it's not.
No, it's
Magic.
Do you believe in magic?
Okay, well, there's only one Magic. What can you say?
What can you say?
Look, 906 games played, 19.5 points, 52% from the field, and 30% from three-point range. 7.2 rebounds, 11.2 assists per game average. That is the all-time leader.
Yep.
And 2 steals a game. 3 times an MVP, 5 NBA championships, 3 NBA Finals MVP. And, the guy who led the league in a bunch of different categories at different times, he was the steals leader 2 years. He led the league in assists 4 years during his career. Even led the league in free throw percentage 1 year. That was the 88-89 season at .911. So better than 9 of 10 made. 10 times All NBA, as I said, 12-time All-Star. Basically every accolade there is in the book. Oh yeah, and then he got HIV and he missed 4 years, and then he came back in 95 and 96, played 32 games for the Lakers, averaged 14.6 and 6.9 assists a game for those 32 games that he came back with the Lakers. Yeah, and it was not the illness that kicked him out; it was just the fear and lack of understanding about AIDS, and he was forced to kind of re-retire. So, what else can you say about him? I mean, the baby skyhook, those great series against the Celtics.
Maybe the best rookie year of any player in the NBA history.
Yeah,
starting at center for an injured Kareem, winning game. It was game 7, right?
7, yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah. Right. If you listed his position listed as a point guard, shooting guard, power forward, and you got to kind of throw the center in there as well. I think he earned to be called the center.
Bugs Bunny first base, Bugs Bunny second base.
Yeah.
I mean, had he not very unfortunately become contracted HIV, I really wonder how many championships Magic would have. I would guess he'd have at least 2 more.
I'd say it had to be at least 2. Yeah, figure.
And who knows what the makeup of those Lakers teams would have been at that time. He was phenomenal to watch. He was one of those guys when he first came in the league and you saw him, you were just like, this is a game changer. He was the biggest point guard you ever saw, and was just such a phenomenal passer.
Yeah,
I mean, watching him against Bird. I mean,
yeah,
is there anything better in NBA history?
He did things that other 6.9.
I don't think there was.
Yeah,
guys just didn't do the way he handled the ball and the way
No,
and I'll say the other thing. I think I said he got AIDS. He got HIV. He actually, became a symbol that it was not an absolute death sentence.
Absolutely,
because he survived it and continues to survive to this day. So,
and he's done a lot of things for the community. I mean,
he just won a championship a few months ago too.
Yeah. He's
he does own the Dodgers. So.
He's an entrepreneurial kind of guy, and he's tried to do a lot for Black business owners and allowing people to sort of work their way up in entrepreneurial situations. And you can make the argument about Steph Curry and some of these other. I'm sorry, as if I'm above ground talking, no one's ever going to beat Magic Johnson at the point guard position. It's just, if you look up point guard in the dictionary, it's Magic Johnson.
Well, if you're building a team,
yeah, in his prime,
you say, well, who do you want at your point guard? Oh,
yeah,
I think I'll take Magic.
Yeah, I mean 99
do you
out
get
of
the
100.
first pick?
Yeah.
Right. Assuming you can have any point guard you want, who are you taking? I think I'll take Magic.
Before we move on, let me ask you guys a couple questions.
Sure.
So there's one guy who I think I was the only one who had him on this list. And let me ask you, there's a lot of guys who I think we could talk about. James Harden now. The guy that I'm referring to is Allen Iverson, who were they a 2, were they a 1? I think Allen Iverson was a point guard. He was also a guy who sort of changed the definition of the position a lot. But who do you think that point guard is it a term that's kind of going to go away in some ways? I mean, is there really? I mean, do you look at Russell Westbrook as purely a point guard? Is LeBron a point guard? I mean, is Nikola Jokic a point guard?
Is anybody that's a point guard right now purely a point guard?
Right. Is James Harden a point guard? I mean, we
know James Harden is a point guard.
Chris Paul also I think, probably deserved to be on this list. And he's another guy whose numbers, I think, far exceed what maybe his accomplishments. I know that sounds strange.
No, it doesn't. It makes sense.
But, you know, who didn't make this list that would make it on our best shooting guards of all time? Is Allen Iverson not top 10 shooting guards of all time? Is James Harden not? I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there.
We'll figure it out when we do the top 10 shooting guards.
But I mean, I think there's a lot of players like Damian Lillard and there's Gary Payton. I think there's a lot of this could easily have been a top 20.
Gary Payton on your. I mean, you did a lot. I mean, I had a few extra. Pete had a couple. I mean, there's
because I really looked at it.
Honestly, could have made
this is my actual. Look.
I think once you get past 5,
it's tough.
There's probably 15 guys that you could have put into those last 5 spots.
Yeah, and I just think the game has changed. Look, point guard in the 50s is very different than point guard in the 70s. Point guard in the 90s is very different than point guard since the 2005. Right. It's a different position. So when you go from Bob Cousy to Walt Frazier to Steph Curry, they're different animals.
Yeah. And also I hear people talk about Chris Paul, and they say, well, of the small point guards, right? He's probably, you could certainly make an argument.
He just puts up numbers, but the eye test isn't there with Chris Paul.
Right.
And I think a lot of people feel that way with Russell Westbrook.
Who are you including in the small point guards?
Well, I don't, they didn't give I think Iverson goes into that category.
Personally, I think Iverson, if I'm starting a team and I pick a player in their prime, I'm taking Iverson over Jason Kidd. I'm taking him over Steve Nash. That's just me. I think he was a better player overall than those guys. I think Iverson sort of fits in that role. Was he a point guard? Or was he a 2 guard? Even when they said, they moved him to 2 guard, he still had the ball in his hand all game long. So I don't know.
Right. The position has changed. The definition has changed because now it's
Nash.
You don't bring the ball up and penetrate and dish it.
It's easy to call. Right.
They're giving the ball to scorers.
Right. It's easy to call. Easy to call Nash and Kidd and Stockton point guards. They were point guards. There's no other way around it. They were point guards. Isaiah, point guard. Magic, even always.
I put Chris Paul more in that kind of classic category.
Absolutely.
Than a lot of the other guys, even though he does put up the numbers.
I will tell you this. I've always been a doubter of Chris Paul. He makes every team he's on a little better. And look at the Suns this year. I mean, his numbers are not. He's at the end of his career, but he's still putting up numbers, and his assist totals are right there with what you would consider a traditional point guard.
He just has to stay healthy through the playoffs.
Exactly. I think Damian Lillard is. If I was starting a team right now and I had to pick a point guard. There's a good argument. I mean, yes, Steph Curry's great, but after Steph Curry, I'm going with Dame Lillard.
Yeah, I think so. He doesn't. Yeah, I agree.
And then you're talking about a guy. Then you talk about a guy whose numbers are off the chart, and Russell Westbrook, who everybody's talking as the next Oscar Robertson, who was number 2 on our list.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and he doesn't get a mention. So it's interesting. I think this idea.
If Westbrook doesn't win, at least something.
But Robertson only had one championship. Jerry West only had one championship. And, Russell Westbrook has never had Elgin Baylor and Wilt Chamberlain.
Right. But there's been a lot of time since then. Right. And not, I
understand.
And not as much time of the NBA when they were around. They were legendary before there were as many legends, those older guys.
Mm-hmm. So, and I think that's what makes Curry break the top 10 and into the top 5 here because he has the chips. He's got the championships. Nash and Kidd didn't. Well, Kidd had one, but it was it's like Gary Payton had one too, but I think he was the assistant clipboard holder on that team.
I think you're right. Well,
anyway, It's interesting. I enjoyed this. I thought it was a hard list.
It was definitely one of the hard. It was there was a couple of NFL ones we did that were a little difficult, but this was pretty dim. This was pretty.
Yeah,
this was fun too. It was fun.
This is one where you can talk about the role of the center changing, right? The big man kind of fading away,
disappearing.
But the role of the point guard has changed multiple times throughout NBA.
Right. Yeah, you have to be a scorer now, or else. I mean, there's a few old school guys, but they're not. You're not seeing them come out of college as being just point guards,
right?
No.
Right. Well, and you're also seeing that that scoring has to come from somewhere else on the team,
right?
So you're seeing small forwards or power forwards who are more defensive minded, rebounding minded. They're not the big time. They're not putting up 20 points a game because the guy bringing the ball across half court, he's putting up 20 a game.
Right.
So.
Exactly.
You got other guys like Kevin Johnson and Tim Hardaway and who else did I have noted here? Going back in the 90s, there were a lot of good point guards.
There were a lot.
Derek Harper, who played forever with the Mavericks and then came to the Knicks. I'm not saying they should have been on this top 10 list, but that next 10 or 15, there's a lot of guys. Tiny Archibald. Tiny Archibald was on the top 50 team of all top NBA players of all time. He didn't make our top 10 list.
Well,
and when you look at it, he shouldn't have.
Think about guys like Tony Parker.
Tony Parker is another guy who definitely deserves to be taught in that conversation.
Penny Hardaway, although he didn't have
Penny Hardaway.
Penny Hardaway played great years.
Penny Hardaway plays 6-7 more years and wins with Shaq. He's on this list.
Mark Jackson.
You know what? Like
Mark
I said,
Jackson.
Talk about more of a pure point guard.
Absolutely, and
there's
might have invented the point. The back
no more
down.
of an epitome of that kind of position play than Mark Jackson.
Fat Lever, who had some ABA time and NBA time, but was an amazing point guard. There's Earl Monroe. He was kind of a point guard with the Bullets until he came to the Knicks and sort of became a two guard. But he was great. Michael Ray Richardson, who if he didn't, literally blow up his career. I think he's still the maybe second all time in steals.
I think it's
a guy like Gilbert Arenas.
Yeah,
who could turn it on with the best of them. For a period.
John Wall.
John Wall.
I think it's safe to say that we could probably do a top 30 point guard list.
Yeah, that's crazy.
We could just go on and on. There were so many good point guards, but like you said before, like we were talking,
we have to stop
once you
at
get
Charlie
past 4
Ward.
or 5, it's very muddy. You could probably put 5 or 6 of any of 20 or 25 people in those.
Right.
It's
funny because if you look at the lists on like Bleacher Report or other things where it's pretty much voted by fans and the fans are obviously younger, it's skewed. Steph Curry's number 1, Magic's on the list, but isn't even always number 1 or 2 on the list. It's not until you really go back and look at the history of the game of how important the point guard was. And I think it directly ties to the era with the big men. Even when you're looking at Stockton, would Stockton's game translate today without the post play, the post-up player being is Tony Parker? Would it a lot? Bob Cousy was passing it into Bill Russell. Bob Cousy was passing it to, all of those other, I think they'd still be great players, but the position, you were groomed to be the quarterback on the court, and it's just changed.
Agreed. Well, I'll wrap up our number 1, Magic Johnson. But yeah, there's just so many good ones. I think at this point that should bring us to our segment of Old Balls. Old Balls. Harry, who's our Old Balls recipient this week?
Our Old Balls recipient this week, in keeping with the point guard, is none other than Mr. Mo Cheeks. That's right. Maurice Cheeks, who is currently an assistant coach with the Chicago Bulls, has been a head coach in the NBA, but was one of these guys who, when I think back to when I was first watching basketball, he played with the Sixers, the Spurs, the Knicks. I think he wound up his career with the Nets, if I'm not mistaken. He was just the epitome of point guards. Tough. I think he made every team he came on better. He's best known as a Sixer. He was an NBA. He was on that championship team in 1983. He was a 4-time All-Star, 4-time NBA All Defensive First Team. and his number 10 was retired by the Sixers. He's got over 12,000 points, 11.1 points per game, almost 7 assists per game, and over 2 steals a game. He's one of these guys who, when I was going through and sort of looking at point guards, he just always came up. When I think of a point guard, I think of Maurice Cheeks, and he had a long career. He again, best known for his time on the Sixers. I remember when he came to the Knicks, he was a spark plug for the Knicks team, and he was, definitely up there in his career and in age. But he was a guy who has become a pretty good coach in this league. Was instrumental, I think, in working with Allen Iverson. He's been instrumental in working with a lot of other young players over his time, and I kind of hope he gets a chance to be a head coach again, because I think he's one of these guys who's seen the game and understands it. And, I just think he's one of those unsung old balls.
I have to agree. There he is. Our old balls recipient this week, Mo Cheeks. Old balls. There you go. On a note, you were talking about Steph Curry before and everything else.
Yeah, 70 tonight against the Knicks.
Right now, he's the Warriors leader right now with 26 points. Randall's up to 23 points. He's back in the Knicks.
Knicks are down by 9.
Knicks are down by 7, 87-94. But
Brooklyn's barely beating the Kings.
Brooklyn's barely beating the Kings. I was going to say, of all the games happening right now, of all the games playing right now, Steph Curry has the second most points. Guess who has the most points?
James Harden.
James Harden. There you go. 27 points.
Well, if you look at it, Golden State's first unit is beating up on the Knicks' first unit, but the Knicks' second unit is beating up on the Golden State. So the lineup of Toppin, Gibson, Rose, and Burks and Quickly are, +8, +11, +13, +13, +8. Everybody else on the Knicks is -22, 17, 19, and 8. So, you could say
this Golden State isn't very deep.
They aren't very deep, and that's the problem with them.
Yeah. That is the problem. All right. Well, that'll bring us to some hot stove. Let's switch it up to do a little baseball. Why not? I'll give you the choice, Pete. You want to start with the Mets or the Yankees? Or other?
Well, let's start with the Mets, because I want to bring something up with the Yankees and get your thoughts on it. It might be a fun discussion, or not fun discussion. It might be an
interesting discussion.
Or it might not be. But
might not. All right.
So yeah. Or let's start with former Mets. I don't know if you read this, but Scotty Kazmir.
Wow, digging deep.
I was going to say, right there you can stop. I didn't read. Go ahead.
Okay, there you go. Well, he's hoping for a comeback. Minor league deal with the Giants.
Minor league deal with the Giants. Wow. Speaking of former Mets hoping for a comeback, Yoenis wants to make a comeback too. Did you see that?
Yeah, I did.
He's holding a showcase for teams on March 2nd. And they asked Sandy Alderson about it. Did you see what he said?
I read it. I don't remember what he said, though.
Sandy Alderson says, yeah, they're all going to rent horses and go ride to his workout.
Yeah. Yeah, he's going to hit some out of the park, and then he's going to kill a boar.
He's going to kill a boar. Yeah, I was about to say, if they ride the horses there, I just hope there aren't any wild boars anywhere nearby. So, but, hey, you know what? Good. I wish him well, but I mean, the
I hope he fails miserably.
Come out to Denver, the Rockies.
I'm not.
I'm going to play first base for the Rockies this year.
You know, we probably shouldn't blame.
You say that again.
It was a bad deal. It was a bad deal. I didn't like the deal. They shouldn't have re-signed him, and he did absolutely nothing for him. But it was the Mets' fault for bringing him back. So, not his fault that he broke his ankle killing a deer or a pig or whatever.
A boar, yeah.
By the way, rightfully so. Everything you hear about the Mets is all about Lindor. He's got a new sneaker. Everybody's so excited about him. Tim Britton discussed the magic that is watching Francisco Lindor. And look, I mean, Lindor's probably the biggest offseason signing in New York sports since A-Rod.
Yeah, no, I have to say it is. But let me ask you a question on Lindor that you bring it up now. I'll ask you both. Do they have to get this? I mean, yeah, in the grand scheme of things, they need to sign Lindor long term. All right, they really do to make the season, this offseason completely, for historical purposes, successful. Getting rid of Rosario and Jimenez, and the rookies and the minor leaguers that they did, for 1 year of Lindor is not obviously worth it. They need to re-sign him. But now, is it imperative that they do it before the season, or can they wait till afterwards?
I would actually wait. It would be nice if they did it towards the middle or end of the season. And the reason why I say that is, let's see what Lindor does. Let's see how he adapts to New York. Let's see what he really does this year, because you never know. I mean, look, if God forbid Lindor has an injury and the Mets don't sign him to a long-term contract, maybe there's a saving grace there.
Well, there's
I think it will be a failure if the Mets don't re-sign it, but I think they will. I think July, August, you'll see the Mets and Lindor sign a lot. It might not be a super long-term contract, which might be good for both sides, but I think you'll see him get 5-6 years.
Well, the numbers that are floating around right now is that he's going to be looking for 10 years at 320.
12 years, I've heard.
12 years? I've heard 10 at 320.
What did Tatis get? 25 years?
Tatis got 75 years at $63 billion a week.
He is 16.
Yeah,
so.
That's what I was reading, that this could be a Tatis-like deal.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be. I think the trend is longer term to make them happy with the fact that they're going to end their career there with a total number that looks staggering, but the per year number, much like LeMahieu, much like Tatis. Not necessarily. I mean, I think San Diego did it right. I think they're starting to, set the table for what other people are going to be looking for. And if I'm Lindor, where else are you going to go? I mean, you're in the biggest market in baseball, with the exception of maybe LA. I would argue New York is bigger. You're on a team in a franchise that's hungry for a superstar. Sign something.
Right.
Where else are you going to go?
Well,
who else is going to be able to afford you and pay you that much?
Right. That leads me to this.
Toronto.
Leads me to two things, and I'll jump off of just generically the Mets for a second, and we'll get back to it in a second. But let me ask you this on that note. Let me ask you this, because you brought up Tatis. Is it better to sign a younger player for the prospect of what they're going to be able to do in the future, or sign an older player, not old player, but older,
proven
player for what he already did?
How about a young player that's already proven that he's worth it? Yeah. I mean, that's Tatis to me. I mean, he's
2 years. 2 years. He came up in 19, and then he played 60 games last.
I think for
granted, he's a great player, but
I think for position players, when you're in a market like San Diego, I think you have to commit, because you're going to have to build pieces around him, and if you can get him long term, you might be able to periodically plug and place players around that player.
Right.
I think in bigger market teams, it's a little harder, and I think it's a lot harder and maybe not so smart to commit to pitchers in the long term, because look, the numbers are just there. They just don't have the longevity they used to. So if you can get a Tatis, and then all of a sudden, he might see 2, 3, 4 major signings that San Diego does during his time there, where they're bringing in other pitchers that are going to be able to help them win. Well, I think it's a smart move.
Yeah, which they're already doing.
Yeah, San Diego has 2 huge contracts right now, or more. Yeah, between Tatis and Machado.
I think when it's a transformational player, and then you take that risk. Well, Tatis is pretty obvious. Well, it's the same thing with Mike Trout. It was the same thing, with fill in the blank. I mean, there's a lot of guys that are
because
like
I think you're if you think he's the guy, right, and he's going to be the guy, then you're looking for some consistency,
right?
And you can rather than trying to put other teams of veterans who together and hoping that all the part, you're going to go, okay, well, we got this guy, and we're thinking he is going to be good to great every single year for X number of years, and we can build around that, right?
Right.
So, I think it's worth it. I mean, you can get burned. Everybody can get burned.
But
you can bring in a veteran and pay him $35 million.
And in a market,
been great, and he can get hurt too.
And in a market like San Diego, you got to, in normal times, you got to fill seats. You have to, because there's no guarantee that San Diego is not the kind of market where if they're not playing good ball, they sell out that stadium. So that you got to earn the money to be. So if they signed a Trevor Bauer, it would not have the impact, the marketability to get to sell season tickets that it does for a Tatis. It's just, it's a no brainer.
Yeah, I agree.
And he's perfect to get young people into the stands.
And you've also got to compete on the field with the Dodgers.
Yeah, exactly.
And the Dodgers, complete opposite.
And
they don't compete long term to anybody, although they did, I guess, when you look at Mookie Betts.
Yeah.
But
Mookie Betts is another guy.
And you're fighting for young fans too.
Yeah, you are.
You know, you got kids that are just starting to love baseball, or who are going to pick who's their favorite team, or
kids who have never watched baseball,
right? And a lot of it's geographic, of course, but boy, you could fall in love with a guy like Tatis. Even if
in LA, you got a lot more sports to compete with. In San Diego, there's nothing else,
right?
I mean,
LA is.
You don't even have the Chargers anymore.
Not so far from San Diego that you couldn't live there. And
but it is very different. And San Diego is
it is.
Yeah.
But I'm saying, Tatis is the kind of guy that you might live in LA, but you might be a San Diego fan because of him.
Right.
So
getting back to the Mets, Lindor, they need to sign 2 big contracts this year. They need to sign Lindor, and they need to sign Conforto. We've been talking about that before. Based on that, hopefully, for Mets fans' sake, for the Mets' sake, for them, for everybody's sake, they're able to sign both of them. If they were only able to sign one, which one of those 2 would you want to see them sign?
Lindor.
Yeah.
Pete?
Yeah, Lindor. And
Lindor's that good. Conforto is, to your point, he hasn't proven himself as much.
I agree. But I will
think you wait till the end of the season to sign.
Conforto's not going to sign because his agent is Scott Boras, and Scott Boras always takes everybody to free agency.
All right, so that's done. Okay, fine.
But if they're going to sign Conforto, he's going to go out and get what deals he can and come back and say, "Hey, you going to sign?"
If you're the Mets, the best thing that you could hope for is a good season where Conforto's numbers are down a little bit.
Right.
A
good season. Yeah, exactly. But here's the thing, though. Here's the caveat there. Let me just bring this up. I agree with both of you, but here's the caveat there. Conforto is their best outfielder. Okay, Conforto is one of their best players.
He's longest term position. He's their only outfielder.
Longest term. Well, yeah. Longest tenured player on the team. That's longest tenured.
And he's young.
Longest tenured non-pitcher. Longest tenured position player on the team.
Right.
And he's still young. He's still in his late 20s, and not even late 20s. 27,
26,
I think.
right?
26, 27, I think. He's going to be 28. But in any event, all right, there are a number of outfielders out there and moving around. But like as you just said, he's their only outfielder. Lindor, not that you don't want to sign him. Of course they want to sign him, and I'm sure that they're going to be able to, or at least put up a damn good fight trying to. But there are other shortstops coming out and entering free agency after this year, and one's right by you, Harry.
Yeah.
Stories coming out. Correa, Seager, they're all going to be free agents after this year. So if for some reason something happens where you cannot re-sign Lindor, you have other options. You can go out and sign a Trevor Story or a Correa or a Seager.
So you're saying there's no other outfielders like Conforto out there?
No, there are, but you know what? At the level,
how many of those shortstops hit like Lindor?
I mean, Conforto's a
Trevor Story's actually rated right now above Lindor as far as
Trevor Story is a really he won't be on the Rockies. I'll be honest with you. I think a guy who might not necessarily be a natural shortstop, but I'm not so sure in what I hear from the Yankees that Gleyber Torres is definitively going to be on is a non-trade, no way, no how type of guy. If the Yankees could pull off a trade with the Mets or could sign a Lindor, I think they will. I think they would.
Maybe they would.
I think Lindor's he's a special offensive talent at a position that doesn't have a lot
Right. And he's an excellent and he's a true shortstop.
He's a true shortstop.
He's Ozzie
defender.
Smith and a young Alex Rodriguez mixed together with maybe not the power so much, but
and I certainly hope they sign both of them, and
I
Conforto's
certainly hope
going to
they do,
test
too.
the waters of free agency and come back. And I hope he has a good season. I hope the Mets have a good season, and he wants to come back.
Yeah.
But if I got to replace one of them, I think it's easier to replace Conforto
Absolutely.
or get somebody
It
close,
is easier to place.
It's not
close
even
to
close.
Conforto than it is to Lindor.
It's not even close. I mean, Conforto's a good player. He's not the best player in the league at his position.
Right.
You know, other than Mookie Betts and Mike Trout, who's better than Lindor? I mean, Tatis. Lindor's a top 5 player in baseball, right? Top 10, top 5,
top 5,
top 5,
top 8,
top 8. Yeah,
top 7.
Michael Conforto's not.
No, he's not. So, one more thing on the Mets. The Bauer saga on Twitter continues. Last week,
he's such an asshole, isn't he?
Last week it was Syndergaard going back and forth with him. Now it's Marcus Stroman's going back and forth with him now too. So, it's going to be really interesting anytime the Mets play the Dodgers this year and Bauer pitches.
Yeah, he seems really thin-skinned.
I think this is why the Yankees did not go after him.
So,
I really think when push comes to shove, you could say what you want about some recent actions on the Yankees, and they're dealing with that right now. But I think the Yankees do still have a little bit of a filter when it comes to that. You know, just what's their mindset? What is the player's mindset, and where are they at?
Yeah.
And I mean, Bauer's putting himself in a position where he better fucking have a good year.
Yeah, he's becoming less and less likable,
right.
And not just by disgruntled Met fans.
Right,
Yeah,
and all he's doing is getting guys riled up to face him, and you don't think now that he's in the National League that somebody's going to brush him back.
Yeah, although I'm drifting farther and farther away from the belief that he was really just playing the Mets to get to the Dodgers. I really don't think that is the case. I think he wanted to play for the Mets, but the Dodgers offered him stuff that the Mets wouldn't.
And he could be home too.
Yeah, and the whole autographed hat thing, supposedly that was never supposed to be seen.
Right.
Who knows?
Which if you believe that, which I do, that would to me back up the case that he wanted to be with the Mets. In other words, he was planning to have autographed Mets hats, thinking he wanted to sign with the Mets.
Right.
He wasn't planning to do that with the Dodgers, but the Dodgers just gave him a better deal.
Yeah.
So I might be wrong. He might have been totally. I don't think he was. I think he would. He went where the money is.
He wanted the money.
He's not the first guy to do it.
He wanted the money. I mean, it wasn't much of a difference.
No, but the opt out was big too.
The opt out.
He can do whatever he wants every year of the contract.
If you're looking at it from his standpoint,
so
I don't think he's the number one, and he wouldn't have been on the Mets either. But he's going to a place where he's got an immediate chance to win a championship.
Sure. Well, that's anher thing too. There's another issue right there. Right. And as far as the Twitter thing last week with Syndergaard goes, Rachel Luba actually got involved in it too. She tweeted a couple things back at Noah Syndergaard as well. I mean, like, you know what?
Yeah. Well, at that point it was they were so burnt. Syndergaard burnt them so badly.
Take these guys'
Allen
phones
shut
away.
up.
Yeah.
Take these guys' phones away.
You gotta love it.
I think it's fun, but Syndergaard burned him.
He did.
There's no reply to that.
So,
yeah. Well,
same to you.
Yeah. Why don't you take your shirt off again?
That's what he was saying. He was talking about his shirt.
Yeah. Yeah. I think your wife likes it when I take my shirt off.
Let's switch it up to the Yankees.
Yeah, he's ballsy though. Syndergaard's
very ballsy.
He's over the line a little bit, but
he's pushing it. He's pushing
he
it.
Could
he
become
just goes over, backs up a little bit.
If he doesn't pitch well, he could become kind of unlikable too.
Yeah. So, all right, let's switch it up to the Yankees. I know you had something you want to mention. I'll just throw it out there. They announced the opening day starter for the Yankees, Garrett Cole.
What a surprise!
Is that a shock?
Yeah. Just one other thing.
Number 2 through 5 is up for grabs. Though.
I was going to say, the game 2 starter is Garrett Cole, and the game 3 starter is
Gleyber Torres.
John, I want to ask you one more thing about the Mets. Are you happy with the Walker signing?
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
I am. I would have preferred Jake Odorizzi, but I mean they're kind of, they're not too different, as far as their numbers. So I'm happy they got another arm
Yeah,
The
I
Mets
also
signed,
heard
the Mets signed Larry Walker.
I also heard they're talking
Neil
about. I don't think they're seriously considering it. But there was
Taiwan
talk about
Walker.
a 6-man rotation.
6-man.
I think a
rotation.
lot of teams are considering that.
Why
Very
not?
interesting.
Why not?
Very interesting.
Be good. I mean, because you can have Joey Lucchesi pitch, and then he could put him back in the bullpen when Syndergaard comes back. You could have a 6-man rotation then if you do that.
I think
All
the
right,
Mets
onto
are the
the
one
Yankees.
team that don't need a 16. Yeah. The Nets should go with a 5-man rotation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the Dodgers
Yankees
could go with a 7 or 8-man rotation.
Well, the Yankees should go with the 2-man rotation if Whitey Ford decides to come back from the grave.
Whitey can be the third starter. I mean,
Yeah.
they can.
There's not
Yeah,
much. There's not much with the Yankees.
Knicks are down by 3.
Yeah.
Next year they're coming back.
So
And Brooklyn is taking care of business.
look, here's the one thing I am hearing out here in Denver is that supposedly the Yankees are knocking on Trevor Story's door. The Yankees are hot on Trevor Story. There's something going on with Gleyber Torres that I don't think the Yankees are liking what they see in the offseason.
And yet they didn't want to trade him to
because he's got
Cincinnati.
some good value.
Yeah.
Well, I think the Yankees are discovering the Denver or the Colorado pipeline.
Yeah, exactly.
They're like, no one else is.
Well,
no
at
one
one
else
point,
knows these guys are good.
I always said it 3 years ago.
But the way
the
the
Rockies had the best infield in baseball.
the way the Rockies are giving up everybody, they'll probably do a straight up trade story for Gleyber Torres.
Yeah, and just give it.
You know? Here, take him.
Get cut. Yeah,
And Ian Desmond opted out for this year too.
he's not going to play.
He's not going to.
He hasn't played in 2 years now.
He didn't play last year. Yeah, it'll be his second year he didn't play.
He would be a good fit on the Mets.
Yeah.
Or any other. He's a good player, Ian Desmond.
Yeah, he's a good guy to
He's a
have.
good
on the
outfielder.
team.
He's good.
He would be he'd definitely start in your outfield on the Mets.
Yeah, he would start.
Yeah.
So hey, well, we'll see what happens with all of that. What was your question on the Yankees?
The thing I wanted to ask you about was Domingo Germán. Donnie German to his friends.
Donnie German.
That's what
that's
Prime and I call him when we're all hanging
Donnie
out
German.
together.
Yeah.
Look, apparently he's been welcomed back by Yankees management, right? They've had a couple of meetings. You had, was it Zach Britton, who
Zach Britton. Yeah.
had not exactly cryptic comments, but we all like a comeback story, right? We all like to forgive those who transgress. Is there a point though where you don't let him back in?
He's got to prove himself.
Or where he shouldn't be let back in.
You could argue
according to what Britton said, there's no place for that.
Well, I think what Britton really was saying is that he better step up.
I don't know. He said sometimes you can't choose your teammates, and there's no place for that on or off the field.
Right.
That to me sounds like I don't think he should be playing.
What it sounds like to me is that what really happened was far worse than what's been reported.
Right.
Yeah, well, there's more. That's the thing. There's more reports coming out now about not only at I think it was a fundraiser for CC Sabathia's foundation.
It was CC Sabathia's,
and afterwards,
it was somebody's wife that took her in, and
yes, I think it was The Athletic was reporting that she was hiding in a closet and called whoever this other player's wife, and they actually went over there to get her, and her mom was just out of control. So
he's drunk and out of control, and there's no excusing it. And I think, but he's paid his time, and I don't think it's Zach Britton's. I think I'd much rather see Zach Britton be able to close a fucking game than tell what's right and what isn't right in sports. I appreciate him speaking up. I think Germán's going to have a hard time getting back into this rotation. And I do think it sounds like that, look, he should be there. If it wasn't for this incident, he would be in their starting rotation, probably number 3.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So maybe the Yankees are sort of allowing their players to do some of the PR work for them that they don't want to necessarily have to do.
Right. Well, here's one of my questions is, I mean, are there things that you can do that you just don't get to come back from?
Yeah.
I mean, Ray Rice, right?
Right.
I think there's a lot.
Isn't this worse than what Ray Rice did?
Is it worse than what Michael Vick did? Is it worse than what OJ Simpson? I mean, OJ obviously did it afterwards, but I mean, is it I don't know. I don't know the details to this. It's obviously, I think players every once in a while do draw the line.
Right.
Yeah.
Look, without knowing the exact details of everything that went on step by step the entire time, or anything that transpired before or after, whatever it was, the specific incident, and I'm not saying I condone it at all, please,
right.
but the specific incident, the general incident, I should say, whatchamacallit, has happened to other players who have come back already. So there's precedent.
Yeah. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying he should be thrown out of baseball. I'm not taking that point of view. I'm just curious about what your thoughts are, because obviously it does have something to do with how good the player is, sure. Right? We know that.
If he was a journeyman, he'd be done.
Yeah, he'd be done. And then
I don't know about that. I think
depending on how good of a journeyman he was, but
I don't think he'd be done. I think he got the hard hand of. I think had he been somebody who was not basically, a foreign player coming into this league, doing what he did, I think he might not have. Look, I'm not saying there's any justification for what he allegedly did,
right.
But it was a pretty heavy, suspension.
Yeah. It was.
And obviously there was.
But has he done anything else?
The law was involved. The law was involved. Major League Baseball was involved.
But has he dealt with those anger issues? If he has them, has he been, what's the word I'm looking for? Diagnosed or
do you think he's treated worse than Ben Roethlisberger was? I don't know. No, none of us were there, and these are all unfortunate circumstances that cannot be condoned in any way, shape, or form. But It gets back to the bigger question of, should your career be terminated for one of these offenses? I don't know the answer to that, but it seems as if it's not always the same punishment being handed across the board. Well, and I think it's something about his personality too that has some of his teammates a little pissed off about this.
It could be. And that's the other point I wanted to make, is that not everything is the same thing.
No.
And I think that's something, quote unquote, good that could come out of this. Look, I think you could make an argument that this was a horrific event and he ought to be thrown out of baseball for the rest of his life. I think you can also make an argument that, hey, it's not the worst thing that's ever happened. It was bad, but as you just said, the punishment's been served and everybody deserves a second chance. Those are both, I don't know exactly what side of that coin I come down on, or side of the fence I come down on, or whatever. But I think it is interesting that, because there are a lot of things where we've gotten to a point where everything is treated the same, where a guy who grabs a woman's ass could be disbarred or shunned or ostracized or whatever to the same degree as a guy who practically rapes a woman, and again, not that either of those things should be condoned, or not. He just grabbed her ass. That's not what I'm saying. But not everything is the same. And
this is not the first, Yankees domestic. Aroldis Chapman was dealing with this just a couple years ago.
I was going to say, you're talking about anger issues. You're talking about Aroldis Chapman when he was in Cincinnati before he came to the Yankees.
And I don't know. I should know this, but I don't know. Was he arrested? Was he suspended by the Yankees? Was he suspended by Major? I think he was suspended by the Yankees. I don't think, to the best of my knowledge, that there was any charges against him. Now, I'm not saying that, again, that doesn't dismiss it. It doesn't mean it didn't
nothing
happen.
happened. It was just,
But at some point,
it was his wife, right?
Yeah, girlfriend.
Her girlfriend, didn't she recant?
There's no police report.
Yeah.
The victim did not call law enforcement. She didn't recant anything. There's no police report from the night of the assault.
Okay, it was somebody else I'm thinking of that there was an incident, and then the girlfriend or the wife said, "Oh, no, it didn't actually happen." Right. So. Yeah, it's a weird
It's a very
situation.
weird,
But I wonder about his like you mentioned his personality, because he's having these meetings, but again, maybe the Yankees would rather just keep quiet about it and not have people spouting off about whether they're quote unquote on his side or not, like kind of Britain is doing. But I don't hear a bunch of his teammates going, yeah, he seems like a changed man and he served his time and I'm fine. He's a good teammate.
Other than Britain, I don't hear anything.
Nobody's saying, that's my point. Nobody's saying anything.
I got to be honest. If knowing the Yankees and their track record and what they would do, I can't believe that if there were going to be, foreseen issues with him coming back, with all the players, based on what he did and everything else, then I can't see them not, doing something about it, cutting ties,
right.
Trading him, something.
But the Yankees are also known as much, if not more so than any other team in sports history, of policing themselves.
Mm-hmm.
That's part of the Yankees.
That's what I'm saying. I think his suspension came from the Yankees and not Major League Baseball.
Yeah.
I think the minute this shit happened, I think the Yankees said, "You're done. You're out." I could be wrong in that, but my memory of this is that it never even got to the Yankees said, "This is it."
So it was
without a police report, without any sort of charges being made. This was, the Yankees' decision to
but apparently you also had players that were at that charity.
Sure,
excuse me, and they witnessed him.
That's what I mean.
Him,
so to John's point, I think this was an inside judgment.
Right. So it wasn't right. Like, in other words, Major League Baseball could say, well, there were no charges filed and we're not really sure what happened. And actually, I saw a story today that there was actually a league official that saw it too.
Right.
And so now there's some question about, well, why didn't Major League Baseball do anything?
Look, the Yankees
have had this with pitchers. They knew what happened, and they said, "Yeah, we saw it, and we have to do something."
I mean, there wasn't domestic violence, but there's been issues back in the day with CC Sabathia when he was drinking. There's obviously been issues with Aroldis Chapman. There's issues with Herman. This isn't only a Yankees issue. This is an issue that is permanent in society, and maybe, just maybe, I'm just throwing this out there, maybe it exists in certain ways because in some parts it is not frowned upon as much as it is in others.
Right.
And that's all I'm going to say.
There you go. Well,
I think societies change at a different rate. Mm-hmm. And I think that,
I mean,
it's a
when in Rome rule.
Zach Britton's perspective on things is probably a little different than Domingo Germán's. They should be the same, and they should be held to the same standard. But they're coming from two different life experiences.
Yeah, right. And the when in Rome rule doesn't, not everyone applies that the same.
No,
right.
No, you're right. Speaking of pitchers, Severino, he's had 5 starts since 2019. None since the beginning of 2019. He had none last year. Yankees say he'll be back in July. He hopes sooner. What do you think?
I think if the Yankees have Garrett Cole and a bunch of question marks, the pitcher should just go out there without a number and just a question mark, like the Riddler on the back of their jersey. I mean, it's like a guy whose arm fell off 2 years ago, who's 38. We'll give him a 1-year contract. Maybe he was a Cy Young winner in 1963. Sure. Severino's probably, if he's healthy or even near what he was 2 years ago,
he's number 2.
He's number 2.
He's number 2.
Yeah. Herman might be 3.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's just the way it is. Or they could both be out. There's so many question marks.
Well, maybe
this Yankees pitching staff.
Maybe the Yankees are going to do. I mean, granted they got decent fielders behind them, but I was just going to make an analogy. Maybe they're going to look at the Nets take on things and just score a lot of runs, and it doesn't matter what the other team scores.
There's never been a team that has won in Major League Baseball without pitching.
Right.
It is always the case. The team that has the better pitching always wins. Always.
Yeah. This is true. But if they score 37 runs a game,
and then are up 37 to 28 and bring in Aroldis Chapman,
and games are 6 hours long every night,
and then they tie it, and then you got Zach Britton fucking with a 27 pitch at bat to fill in the blank. Yeah,
Okay.
I feel so comfortable about it.
Yeah, why not? What the hell?
Rather see a 48-year-old Andy Pettitte fucking starting.
There you go.
Yeah.
To wrap up baseball, I just wanted to say this to it. You mentioned Mike Trout earlier. Mike Trout recently was quoted as saying, "Missing the playoffs every year is weighing on me." So.
Yeah, well,
I think he's pulling a Russell Westbrook or Russell Wilson.
Russell Wilson.
Or
time
he better be careful.
time for the Angels to trade Mike Trout.
The Angels haven't exactly done right by him, and I would imagine that Major League Baseball is kind of saying the same thing, because I'm sure they would love for Mike Trout to have any postseason exposure.
Sure,
but Trout,
that would be great for the league, not just for Trout, but for the league.
Trout is sort of an example, though, of his contract. Sort of puts the Angels, who are always going to be in the shadow of the Dodgers,
sure,
in a situation where they can't really build a team around him without it being young people coming up through the draft, through their farm system, and maybe getting some,
because they don't have the money to spend a ton of money in the luxury
because
tax.
he's signed. So if Mike Trout goes somewhere else, who's going to take that salary right now? Dodgers. I mean, the Mets might. But other than that, I don't see anybody else willing. I don't even see the Yankees biting on that.
No, you can't.
And the other thing too is that
it would have to be restructured, and it would have to be. LA would have to eat a little of it. And
how many more years is Mike Trout going to be the best player in baseball? And is he still the best player in baseball? Mm-hmm. I would argue maybe not.
Yeah. No, I mean he's one of the best players in baseball. He's in the top 5. Is he still number 1? I'd say he is. But,
until he's not at the end of this season, then I think he is.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Let's see, $35 million this year, base salary,
which seems like a lot, but that's
35 through 2030.
How much is Stanton making on the Yankees?
20 something, 24, 25.
Is Mike Trout worth $10 million more?
10 years. Another 10 years at
$35 million. Yeah, $350 million, and we're talking about 10 years and $320 for Lindor, and Mike Trout's getting more than that already.
Mike Trout's going to be 30, so in 7 more years from now, when he's 37,
he'll still have 3 years. $35 million.
It'll be a steal.
Absolutely, pick up the rest of that contract. Why the hell not? Whatchamacallit? Yeah, it's.
What's Giancarlo making?
What is Giancarlo making?
29, 32, 32.
Yeah, so
29.
My point being, Mike Trout's worth it.
2027, you get him for a bargain of $25 million for.
God, that was
27 and 28.
Dumbest signing ever.
Just a quick thing. Tatis Jr.
Yeah,
was it a 14-year deal at that money?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Once he's done with that contract, and he's made all of that money,
he'll be 40.
Bobby Bonilla is still going to get another check.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
Gotta love it.
Yeah.
Gotta love it. All right.
Yeah, but I mean, all right. Now look at this contract by comparison. See, he's got ridiculously low numbers starting out.
Who's that?
Tatis.
Oh, Tatis. Okay. Oh, you're comparing that.
Yeah, it's like 11 million, and then when you get up 2024, 11 million, 2025, 2020, then 25 and 25, then it jumps up in 2029 to 36 and 36. So he's just going to make more and more as he gets older and older. 2034, he'll let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Last 6 years of the contract, he's 36 million.
I mean, you joked about Trout going to the Dodgers. If Trout did go to the Dodgers, you would have 3 of the top 4 players in baseball
on the Dodgers
in their outfield.
Yeah, you would. And think about that though. You're talking the last 6 years of Tatis Jr.'s contract. He's making $36 million. You said.
Yeah.
All right. Think about 14 years from now what $36 million a year is going to be in a contract.
Right. Well, and again, if you look at the average, it's 24 and change, which and he's 22 years old now.
22.
So you figure look, he could be productive, right?
He'll be
let's
22
say,
this year. I think at some point this year is 22.
So he could be productive, seriously productive for the next 10 years, at least, right? Yeah. So, you're going to, that average set, in other words,
that contract is going to be, if he, barring any injuries or anything else, most of that contract, he's going to be very productive.
He's the new Mookie Betts.
Although Mookie Betts, and the end of that contract is steal.
As the third best player in baseball, and Tatis is ranked 32nd.
Right, but I mean, this is not a deal where you're giving him a shitload of money and you're going to win in the next 2 or 3 or 4 years, and then yes, you're going to pay him a lot of money, but you're going to get your championships now, and then he's going to be old and worn. He's got years and years before he becomes old and worn out.
And so maybe San Diego can win one during his 14 seasons.
2. But does he become the next Mike Trout? San Diego seems to have it lined out better, where they might be able to put a better team around him than they can in Anaheim or whatever the hell they are now. California, Los Angeles.
Well, here's
I'm dating myself.
The difference: Trout's average salary is $35 million, Stanton's $25, and Tatis is $24.
Yeah.
So that's the biggest difference. And so that extra $10 million a year, it makes a big difference as far as what else you can do with your team.
Yeah, and Trout and Tatis can catch a baseball.
This is true.
Yeah.
This is true.
I mean, Stanton is the dark cloud hanging over the Yankees. Right?
Remember when that deal went through and there were so many people going, "Oh, Derek Jeter's still working for the Yankees."
Maybe he should just go. Maybe he should just adopt his old name back. Get rid of Giancarlo, go back to Mike.
You mean the middle reliever? Yeah, I don't know. The Dodgers are the team to beat still. It pisses me off, but they're the team to beat.
But hopefully they'll have some competition.
And hopefully
in their division.
Yeah. Right. That's right.
It's not going to be from the Rockies.
It's not going to be the Rockies. No, it's not. So, well, anyway. That should wrap up MLB. Quick NFL note: Jets. There's been a lot of talk with the Jets.
Maybe too much talk.
Maybe a little too much, but back and forth. Trade Sam Darnold, pick a quarterback with number 2. Keep Sam Darnold. He's still a good commodity. What'd you take? And we'll start with Pete, since you're the token Jets fan here.
I think Sam Darnold has yet to be put in a good position where he can succeed, and I think he still has a chance to be a very good quarterback. I'm not sold on anyone but Trevor Lawrence as the savior for the Jets coming out in the draft.
I agree, but Zach Wilson, I think, is a good quarterback. I think
you draft Zach Wilson and you see who's better.
I think they're all good quarterbacks. To me, bringing in Saleh and LaFleur, it looks like they're perfect guys to bring the kind of offense that Bradford Darnold should flourish in.
So your point is basically you could bring Johnny Unitas back, and no quarterback's going to be able to perform with this current talent that's surrounding them on the Jets.
Well, I think.
Yeah.
But you also have to, I don't think the talent is all that terrible, and I don't think you have to, go to the Super Bowl next.
Darnold got beat out.
I think he's got a lot in the tank, and
I mean,
he was making the kind of rookie mistakes that you make because he's trying to do too much.
He's trying to do too much because of what's in front of him. The Jets have a long history of screwing quarterbacks' careers up.
They do.
The consensus is, though, that Zach Wilson is a better quarterback than Sam Darnold. That's if you really look at the so-called experts who are they are saying that his upside far exceeds Sam Darnold's upside.
If Zach Wilson and Sam Darnold both came out in the same draft 3 years ago, Zach Wilson would have been the one to take for the Jets, not Sam Darnold. The Jets obviously they didn't take who was picked after him. Josh Allen was picked after Sam Darnold. Lamar Jackson was picked after Sam Darnold. Lamar Jackson was picked at the number 32 pick.
But you can't blame the Jets for that.
You can't.
Lamar
No,
Jackson is black, and that had a lot to do with where he was picked.
Well, you know what though? I mean,
I don't know about
going
that.
off of the talent though.
It had something to do with it.
Going off of the talent though,
because already
he didn't have the
saying,
pedigree. He didn't. Darnold, much like Mark Sanchez, they came with so much hype around them.
They did.
Well,
It's a
but
USC
Sanchez really didn't deserve that hype.
No. I'm not sure Darnold did either.
But the bottom line
he
is
deserved more than probably not as much as he got, but that's the media. They're everyone's
of course,
and where they play, and now they
same and where they play. But he deserved a little more than Sanchez.
The bottom line is if Zach Wilson, this year's Zach Wilson, was in that 2018 draft, he would have been picked, or should have been picked. He would have been rated,
but he wasn't
rated higher than.
But
Wilson
is sort of shot up when the season was over. He was not even projected in the top 10, and now he's being projected at number 2.
Right.
So everybody loved Josh Fields before the national championship game, and now I'm reading about he can't really get past his first read. So I mean, it's
in that game. Look at the games before that.
Well, he had a great game against the game before the championship game. Obviously, one of the best games ever.
Yeah, the Clemson game. He had a great game.
You could say the same thing about Trevor Lawrence. He beat Trevor Lawrence. Like, granted, he wasn't playing defensive back against Trevor Lawrence, but it's the same thing with Tua. Back in the day, I don't know. Who's the quarterback that went to the Redskins from Ohio State? Who the Jersey kid who everybody was thinking the Giants should have taken ahead of Daniel Jones. There's a lot of guys whose college careers look really good, but you have to trust these NFL scouts and what they're able to say about, is this guy really ready for the NFL? I knew Joe Burrow was ready for the NFL. I thought Joe Burrow was a better quarterback than Trevor Lawrence. He may still be. What I think, unfortunately, when you get picked by a lot of these teams, you are then subjected to what happened to Joe Burrow. Who knows if he's even going to come back?
The best players always go to the crappiest teams. I don't have as much confidence in those other guys coming out of the draft as a lot of other people do. And I think the organization is building it in a situation where anybody could succeed, I guess, but it's almost a perfect situation for Sam Darnold. I don't think he's beaten down. He's a competitor. I think he still has the skills. He just needs to be.
Let me frame the question the other way and sort of reiterate what you're saying. If the Jets could get, let's look at it. It's two different things. Let's say the Jets could get a second and a third round pick, or even maybe a late first round pick, conditional first round pick for Sam Darnold, and then draft Zach Wilson. Does that change your opinion about Sam Darnold?
I would say I'd also want to know what they can get for the second pick.
Mm-hmm.
I'd have to see what other, what can they turn that into?
Yeah.
Because you're right. It's not just a new coach and a new regime that's going to fix Sam Darnold. You've got to put pieces around him.
Sure.
And I think that second pick can go a long way towards that, but I'd have to see what they get. But I see what you're saying, and I agree. It's not a bad strategy. I'm not saying that drafting a quarterback is the worst thing that they could do. Sure. I'm just saying I'd like to see Sam Darnold get another chance. You've got him in hand.
I mean, there's
experienced.
There's a lot of teams looking at that are just begging to try to get a middle of the road quarterback to come play for them. And look, that's what all the Broncos chatter is. Gee, do we have a chance at Teddy Bridgewater?
Yeah. Right.
I mean, that's sort of the reality in a lot of places right now.
If you can find somebody, you get that, whatever the magic number for what that first round pick would have to be.
I think
Sam Darnold, you'd have to consider it. Sure.
I think that the Jets are a lot smarter than the team that shares their stadium with them about at least being open to the possibility.
Right.
Yeah.
Because the Giants are not due to stubbornness. And we're going to be stuck with Daniel Jones, who, look, I hope Daniel Jones wins 4 Super Bowls, but I know he won't.
Right.
It's going to be another 10 years of Daniel Jones.
But I wouldn't be heartbroken if Sam Darnold goes somewhere else.
I feel the same way. I don't. He's a lot like Carson Wentz. I think there's a lot of similarities in that they might be able to get Wentz. You got a second and a third that third or the second could become a late first based on, a conditional based on playing time. I don't think the Jets can get that for Darnold, but I think they can get something close to that.
Right.
And it seems like draft picks are currency that is invaluable in today's NFL. And so,
the Jets have a bunch of them already.
They do. And that's their capital.
Right. But if you could take that second pick and turn it into even more picks,
right.
Then you would think, well, now we can put some tools around.
Let me ask the other question. If the Jets could get Deshaun Watson, do you even care what happens to Sam Darnold?
No.
Neither do I.
I don't care if Houston wants.
And you know what? Sam Darnold would be a great backup.
Yeah.
He'd be a great backup.
If Houston wants him, you send him there. If Houston doesn't want him, you keep him as a backup, or you can still trade him for a first-round pick. But I would keep him as a backup.
He'll be the Kevin Knox of the Jets, a first-round pick that sits on the bench.
There you go. Speaking of Carson Wentz, real quick, I forget the receiver's name, who won't give up his number 11.
Oh yeah, Indianapolis.
Yeah.
That tells you what he thinks about Carson Wentz.
If I were Carson Wentz, though, I think I would just take a new number, new team, new number. I'd be like, you know what? It's a whole new start for me. That's fine. I
mean, isn't Carson
maybe take number 12?
Just Michael Pittman Jr.
Higher. Yeah, Pittman. Yeah,
Pittman. Yeah.
Who's the quarterback for the Bears and the Broncos? Isn't Carson Wentz just the new version of him? Nobody liked him.
Quarterback.
Osweiler?
No, before that, he was actually a decent quarterback, but he
Orton.
Oh, Jay Cutler.
Jay Cutler. There you
Cutler,
go.
No.
I mean, he sort of reminds me. It's the same thing. Nobody likes him.
Yeah.
Yeah,
okay.
If you do a statistical analysis, Jay Cutler wasn't that bad.
No.
Jay Cutler was a decent quarterback, actually.
He just had a face you wanted to punch.
He just had a face that you wanted to punch.
Carson Wentz sort of reminds me of that. Yeah, I don't know.
That's pretty funny.
The Knicks lost by 8.
Knicks lost by 8.
So they just can't seem to get to 500. But
no.
They're starting 5. Minus 21, minus 21, minus 18, minus 22, minus 21.
Right.
So they're not quite ready to.
They're not ready for
the big boys yet.
Not ready for primetime players.
And Kevin Knox, Austin Rivers, and Frank Nicolita again did not get up off the bench.
Did not off the bench.
Yeah.
There you go. All right. Well,
but they're. We're almost halfway, right? We're almost at the halfway point.
Yeah.
On the cusp of it. So.
Right, not right now. We're at the halfway now, right?
Yeah. So give whatever another 10 games, and I mean, they need time, right?
Yeah.
How many of these guys have played before?
Maybe by the time there's 5 or 8 games left.
How many of the guys on the Knicks that actually play have ever actually played together before?
No, I think this is a great improvement. I will say this: if the Wizards go in and beat the Clippers back to back with the Lakers tonight. I think you got to start to say maybe they're on a heater. Maybe there's something to Bradley Beal and Russell Westbrook playing together. I mean, they're beating the Clippers right now. So it's
interesting.
That's 14-9 Clippers, but yeah,
we'll see how that shakes out.
Still early.
Still early. A little bit.
Still early.
Well, look, the Clippers only lost because of Doc, right? We know that.
That's right.
It was all Doc Rivers' fault.
And the Sixers are winning despite him.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the take.
Well, Doc Rivers finally found a guy to build a team around that was from his era. He's like, there's one guy in the NBA who kind of looks like an actual center. Give him to me.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And then I'll make something out of my point guard that couldn't hit the side of a barn with a beach ball.
And they have similar voices.
Yeah.
Doc and Embiid.
Yeah. They both sound like they need a lozenge.
Yeah.
All right. Is that it?
Quick NHL
Oh,
note.
God.
Oh, hockey, yeah.
Hockey, that's another sport there.
How about those Devils?
You hear about
Artemi
Panarin?
No.
What? This is bullshit, right? This is just Russian bullshit.
Yeah. I mean, Artemi Panarin came out, he doesn't like Putin. He doesn't like some of the politics that go on over in Russia. And apparently a former coach of Panarin's in Russia
I thought you were going to say he got stabbed by Ted Cruz.
Is alleging that Artemi Panarin beat an 18-year-old girl in 2011.
Yeah.
Now, there's no report of it or anything else. The only person, no girls come forward or anything. The only person that has said it is this former coach of Artemi Panarin's.
Yeah.
And Panarin's saying it's a completely fabricated story.
He's taking a leave, though, right?
Because he's outspoken regarding his politics, yeah. But there's no victim. The coach is the only one. But he fears for his family's safety, so he's taking a leave of absence, and he's going, to deal with his family over there right now. So
yeah,
I don't know if I think he's going to try to go get them and come back here.
Well, yeah, I mean,
he might not be coming back.
Yeah, it's probably what he's going to try to do, but get him out without going there, maybe. Who knows? But he's taking a leave of absence from the team to deal with this. But yeah, it's just an odd story.
Yeah, on the Michael Kay show, they said, what's next? Is there going to be a girl who comes forward? And my thought was that is exactly what will be next. They will not because there's a girl that he beat up or whatever he's accused of, but because they will threaten someone. They will threaten someone into fabricating a story because that's how it works.
Sure.
So we may have seen the last of him if he actually goes back into Russia and not a border country and maybe tries to get his family out from there. He may never come back.
Right. Yeah. They can just they may not let him out.
No.
Yeah. They may not.
Trumped up charges. They'll throw him in jail.
That's it.
Look what who's the
goddamn communist sports.
Well,
So. But in any event, that's the latest on that. They're across the league right now. The Rangers sit in 6th place in the East. So they're kind of back.
The Devils lost to Buffalo.
Devils lost to Buffalo 4-1.
Devils are behind the Rangers.
6-6, and
Sabres are pulling up the rear there. Islanders are up there, but Bruins are have the most points. 24 points there. That's right.
Boston and Toronto. Let's go old school.
Boston
and Toronto, Montreal, and
Yeah, why not? There you go.
Well, Vegas is on top.
Yeah, Vegas is. It's going to be Vegas and Tampa Bay. Two places where ice melts.
Panthers
are highest rate.
Panthers are playing good hockey right now too. So there you go. And Vegas is up there, and Toronto's run away with the North right now. So. We'll see how that shakes out, but the
Maple Leafs still have the best record in hockey.
Yeah,
Penguins are 10-6.
Penguins are 10-6.
So there we go. So they're in it.
21 points. Yeah, they're just ahead of the Islanders. They're tied with the Islanders.
Mm-hmm. So, but
whatever.
I don't know. I still think Brian Trottier and Mike Bossy's line is the best in hockey.
There you go. Today.
Today. Yeah.
Oh yeah, is it today or was it yesterday? No, it's today.
Today.
Yeah.
So
that's an interesting question. Is that the greatest moment in American sports history?
What
the Miracle on Ice?
Probably. I mean, either that or the Tanya Harding.
Well, that's the most embarrassing greatest moment.
I mean, it's the second greatest moment in winter.
But if you think about it, it's hard because it was a long time ago. But
it was a long time ago. But yeah,
that was something. I mean, that captured everybody was watching that, whether you were a hockey fan or not.
Absolutely. I mean,
you were an American. You were watching. You knew what was going on.
There's maybe 5 moments in sports that I can say were definitive to me, and that one certainly shoots to the top. The only ones that were as exciting was Bucky Dent's home run, Scott Norwood's missed field goal, and maybe Reggie Jackson's 3 home run game.
What about Aaron Boone's home run?
Yeah, well, to me that was. I mean, I was a kid with Bucky Dent listening to it on the radio, because my mother took my sister to a doctor's appointment, so I couldn't watch it. And I don't even think it was. And same thing with the Miracle on Ice. It was on tape delay, so I was listening to it on the radio.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the Miracle on Ice is without a doubt the greatest moment. And
it's got to be. I'll throw one more in there. Those are all great moments, but I'll throw one more in there for you. Mookie Wilson's dribbler through Buckner's legs.
Yeah, and people that are a little older will say the Ali Frazier fights, because there was a cultural component to that, and everybody was listening to that, on the radio. It wasn't on television, but it was, and I think it was kind of it's been documented in some TV shows and other things, but that was also a moment that was, I think, transformational, in the fact that you didn't have to be a sports fan or even understand boxing to just sort of be in. It was a moment. It was an event,
right?
That everybody was tuned into.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
It's hard, because when you talk about baseball or the Super Bowl, there's obviously those are local teams, and there's a national appeal to it, but not the same kind of national appeal of the U.S. Olympic hockey team.
Well, and we don't have the sort of national teams. In some countries, that's all they had. I mean, when you go back even 20 years ago, you only had the Russian hockey team. You didn't have Ovechkin playing for the Washington, Capitals.
Yeah,
you didn't have local team. You didn't the Cuban national team playing in the Olympics was the biggest thing for those countries. So for us, I think the national teams, because we've had so much pro sports here, have always been diluted. But we've never been a hockey country. And the fact that we were still a bunch of college guys, a bunch of amateurs playing on a team that was severely underrated and underdogs, then, the story is just you
if there had been pros on that team, it wouldn't have been the same thing. Yeah. I mean, the dream team, for as wonderful as that was,
it would have been the equivalent of like Lithuanian college kids beating the dream team.
Right.
It really is. I mean, people, I make that analogy. People go, no. That Russian team was arguably the best hockey players and the best team in the world by far.
Right. It was. Yeah. It was.
And they were beat by a bunch of college kids. And the fact that none of them really went on to become stars in the NHL, it was a moment, and that's what makes it pretty spectacular.
Amazing. It was. All right. Well, on that note,
it happened on our soil.
And it happened on our soil, yeah. So that was, and it was also.
Did it happen, or was it like the moon landing?
It was right. And it wasn't even the championship game. It wasn't even the gold medal round. It was the semifinals.
Yeah, they had a win against Sweden.
Finland. Yeah.
Same
place.
Same difference. Sweden, Finland, Norway.
One's got better fish.
There you go.
Do they?
This is true.
I don't know. Maybe.
I'm sure.
Better fish than Lake Placid, New York? Come on.
Maybe.
No, better fish than Sweden.
I know.
Finland's got better fish than Sweden.
No,
Sweden's got better fish.
It was Finland. The Finland that they beat, or Sweden?
It was Finland. So they beat Russia in semifinals, and they beat Finland in the finals. But you're right though. It was for that national-esque type of a win. I'd like to your point, Pete. All of these points we brought up are all local. And they're going to be important to some people around the country, but not everybody as a whole.
Yeah, I mean, everyone who's a football fan is going to be watching the Super Bowl,
right?
And even if it's not your team, you're going to pick one team or the other, right? No one who's a real fan goes, I don't care who wins as long as it's a good game. Shut the fuck up, get out of here.
Right? Exactly.
You're going to have a rooting interest if you're a fan, I think.
Right.
But it's
different when it's
and the other moments that I remember on an international stage weren't necessarily about Americans. I mean, Carl Lewis, but I remember Nadia Comaneci before I remember the U.S. I would also say the other event that comes close was the first U.S. women's soccer team with the what's her name taking her shirt off. That is right up there.
Mia Hamm.
No,
Brandy
Chastain. Yeah. No, Mia did not show her hams.
But of course, that's been, they're like I think they're the most successful international team this country's ever had, right?
Without a doubt.
They get no
and
press.
they're still fun to watch. But I mean,
yeah, but they don't get any.
Jesse Owens back in the 36 was probably a big event.
Sure.
Right.
Here they have Brandi Chastain number 4. They got the dream team ahead of her, but I think Brandi Chastain's was 99 when that happened.
Right.
Yeah, because I mean there was a lot of backlash against the dream team, just from people who thought it shouldn't be the pros, and oh gosh, we lost, and now we've got to change the rules, to go out and prove that we're the best. Just take your lumps and come back with a better team next year. But
yeah,
and I was amongst those people. I didn't love the dream team. I thought it should.
I didn't give a shit.
Should have been an amateur competition.
Right. Yeah. For years, it always was. Why do it? Why change it up?
Right. Well, and it became completely anticlimactic and
Sure.
beating the shit out of the rest of the world who doesn't have nearly the same level of development in basketball, the same structure. It's just not going to produce teams that are as good as Michael Jordan and the best pros. You know what I mean? It was completely unfair.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, it just kind of destroyed it was predictable. Oh, we're going to win. That's not a source of pride.
Well, there's not as many people willing to do it anymore. And our current teams, which are still made up of NBA superstars, have a harder time winning these championships.
Well, and the rest of the world is caught up.
The rest of the world
and it's caught up. There's a lot more development. Yeah,
sure. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, look how many
with all the Gasols out there.
When was all the Gasols themselves could make up a team and a half. When was the first Dream Team?
92.
Yeah. So, and how many foreign-born players were actually playing in the NBA at that point versus now?
Sure.
Well, not
now
as
they're on
every
now. Team.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like for a while there only the Nets drafted the foreign-born players.
Right.
Well,
from Slovakia or Lithuania or whatever the hell it was. Yeah. All right.
Now that worked out.
All right.
Top 10 players from the U.S. From the Miracle on Ice team.
Top 10 players in the Miracle on Ice team. There you go. Right.
It's a hard one.
We'll have to work.
How many players were on the team?
10.
12.
Probably 20.
Right. So we'll pick them. We'll pick them. We'll figure it out. All right. On that note, folks, we'll wrap it up for today. We want to thank everybody for watching, and for those of you just listening to the audio podcast, thanks for listening. Don't forget to visit our website, www.loggerroom.com. That's LAGERROOM.com. And please remember, like us and follow us on all of our social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and our YouTube channel. All of them are at The Logger Room. Remember, we go live with the video podcast on both Facebook and YouTube every Wednesday. Today's special. We did it on a Tuesday. Not next week, not normally, but every Wednesday at 7:30. For those of you that want to just listen to the audio podcast, you can do so on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, TuneIn, and Stitcher. And if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to one or more of those feeds, and you'll never miss a show. Again, thanks for following along with us. Have a great week. Have a wonderful weekend. Enjoy all of the sports you watch, and we will talk to you soon, folks. Take care, guys. Cheers.
We're lasting in podcasting.
Swishing and dishing and signing off.
Tuesday and
Wednesday and Newsday. There you go.
Please end it.
Look at the little Tula. She's talking to the producer there. And a woman in a jumpsuit throws her a grapefruit. By George,